The Magician of the Fairy Tale World. Chapter 81. At the port of Enda's imperial city. Two children, a silver-haired boy and a golden-haired girl, had appeared on the street at some point. I have a question, teacher, Aurora asked, looking up. Since you don't want Prince Eric and Ariel to truly elope into the sea, why did you brew a medicinal wine that can turn humans into merfolk? During this journey, Aurora gradually realized that although her talent was theoretically very high due to the blessing, she was still too young and lacked social experience. Many things she learned from textbooks were just dead knowledge that she couldn't actually apply. And that blessing only enhanced her memory, seemingly without directly improving her intelligence. It seemed she still had much to learn, Aurora thought. That medicinal wine isn't really for them to elope into the sea, it has another purpose, Rhine replied. Oh. What does that mean? Aurora asked. Talking too much about fate makes it lose its effectiveness, Rhine chuckled. In a very distant land, there's an ancient saying, heaven's secrets must not be revealed. He was telling the truth. Divination and prophecy were inherently highly restricted, not only requiring a medium but also yielding only vague fragments. Moreover, some prophecies involving the future, if revealed to others, could affect the accuracy of the outcome. Speaking of which, fate is truly a marvelous thing. Rhine gazed at the flowing clouds in the sky. He still remembered that when he initially suggested that the King of Rose Kingdom invite the Black Witch, he thought it would change the fate of the Black Witch furiously breaking in because she was not invited. However, Black Witch Maleficent became enraged by something else and still cast the curse. Similarly, when Granny Rosa was looking for the tinderbox, she didn't inform him in advance, causing him to miss the opportunity to remind her, allowing the soldier to successfully obtain the tinderbox. Everything seemed to be predetermined in the unseen. These two incidents gave Rhine, who had initially believed he could easily change fate, a strong sense of frustration. Having recently acquired this crystal ball and strengthened his prophetic abilities, Rhine finally vaguely sensed that for him, a visitor from outside this world, fate possessed a powerful self-correction ability. Some important, crucial scenes from the original work, those fate nodes that, once altered, would cause the entire story to almost cease to exist. Even if one tried to prevent them from happening, the world might force them to occur. But this absolutely does not mean that fate cannot be changed, Rhine thought. With his previous failures, he had now mastered a better approach. There was no need to forcibly prevent the corresponding fate nodes or scenes from happening, as that would only be counterproductive, allowing the destined future to come to pass through unexpected turns of events. The key was to make the corresponding scene happen, on the surface, but in reality, be completely different from the original. For example, changing the content of the blessing given to Aurora was a suitable approach. Fate can also be deceived. Rhine was instantly filled with emotion. I suspect that before long, we will receive news that Prince Eric and the Princess of Enda are to be married, Rhine said. What? Aurora was stunned. But that's impossible. Prince Eric would never agree to the wedding. And Enda has no reason to force him, right? Why would they have no reason? Rhine flipped his hand, and a small amount of fine powder appeared in his palm. Earlier, I transformed into a bird and secretly touched the Enda princess's cosmetics, and I found something amiss. I used divination to examine them, and these spices are ground from magical herbs, imbued with powerful spells. This magic only works on males. If Prince Eric smells their scent for a long time, he will become the caster's puppet. Aurora's expression suddenly turned grave. So the marriage alliance with Enda hides such a big conspiracy. We must quickly inform the king of the Sia kingdom. Rhine shook his head. Others, including mages with ordinary divination abilities, cannot detect the subtle magic in this scent. Even I, without the aid of the crystal ball for divination, would not be able to discover the hidden danger within it. Just this one piece of criminal evidence is completely insufficient. Enda can accuse it of being just a mage's one-sided statement and deny that these spices have any problems. The alliance between the two countries will still continue. Aurora looked worried and fell into thought. Then what should we do? Think about it, Prince Eric will definitely refuse the marriage. But that old witch of Enda will absolutely not sit by and let this happen, Rhine chuckled. They are about to reveal more of their true colors and actively provide us with new evidence. If our plan succeeds next, we will not only disrupt the alliance between the Sia kingdom and Enda, but the prejudice between humans and merfolk will also be cleared away. The old witch found the heartbroken princess crying in her room. My little princess, there's no need to be sad. I've long heard that Prince Eric of the Sia kingdom is a rebellious youth. Perhaps he is deceiving you. Perhaps he just casually made up a non-existent lover to refuse his father's arrangement. The princess stopped crying, lifted her head, and stared at the court witch with glistening azure eyes, half believing, half doubting. Really? You can try it. The old witch handed a bottle of wine to the princess. People often say that only when drunk do people speak the truth. You let the prince drink some of my treasured strong liquor, and while he's heavily intoxicated, ask him if such a lover truly exists. My little princess, I guess you are the one he loves most in his heart. The princess of Enda took the wine. I can certainly give it a try. She then left the small room to find Prince Eric. Watching the princess's departing back, the old witch grinned. She had added a potion of oblivion to the wine, capable of making someone permanently forget something. As long as the prince drank that wine, he would completely forget Ariel. Oh, to concoct this precious potion, I really went all out. The old witch couldn't help but sigh. She had exhausted too much of her powerful magic reserves during this time. One resurrection opportunity, a magic staff that could transform into a venomous snake, and treasured medicinal ingredients. According to the book, if one experiences a particularly strong stimulus after losing their memory, there's a possibility they might recall it. If that girl named Ariel were to stand before Prince Eric again, sing the mermaid's song to him, and declare her love for him, it might awaken Prince Eric and make him remember the lover in front of him. Therefore, we must keep a close eye on Ariel and absolutely not let her appear before Prince Eric. Prince Eric and the princess must marry as soon as possible. On the morning of their wedding day, Ariel will turn into sea foam and completely vanish. When that annoying mermaid becomes foam on the waves, no one will ever be able to awaken Prince Eric again. The old witch thought about it more and more, feeling that the entire plan was flawless. She's just a mermaid, with no magic or other formidable abilities. No matter what her status in the sea, once she's on land, she's just a lone individual. How could she possibly contend with me, who has the entire Enda supporting me? More than a dozen strong and elite Enda warriors walked towards the ships of the Sia kingdom. Each of them was a warrior capable of fighting tigers bare-handed, with sharp swords at their waists and wearing magnificent and majestic battle armor that shimmered in the sunlight. The Enda warriors said they wanted to visit the large and beautiful ships and hold a banquet on board to celebrate the meeting of the prince and princess. The accompanying personnel on the ship had no suspicions and allowed them to board. However, upon seeing this group of elite warriors, Ariel felt an innate fear. She vaguely felt that those warriors were all staring at her, staring at the cabin where she was. As the sun was about to set, another grand banquet began. At the banquet, the princess poured Prince Eric a drink. It was precisely the wine the old witch had given her. As the fiery liquor went down, Prince Eric felt tipsy, and his entire soul and mind were in a daze. The scenes that had once been etched into his memory, which he thought he could never forget, vanished without a trace, like words written on a beach, disappearing after one rise and fall of the tide. He forgot how she once held his hand to watch the sunrise and sunset, the sunlight stretching their shadows long on the ground. He forgot her beautiful singing in the great hall that once made his hands red from applause. He forgot how, in the crystal ball, he had seen that brave mermaid navigate around the collapsing mast in a stormy night, risking her life to save him. He forgot how they rode horses together through the emerald forest, letting branches brush their shoulders. He forgot how, during their journey to Enda, as the luxurious cruise ship sailed across the sea, they sat on the ship's edge, pointing together at the azure ocean, envisioning a future where they would grow mermaid tails together and elope to live in the sea. He forgot her. Naturally, the prince also forgot his promise to Ariel and the medicinal wine that would turn his legs into a fish tail. That bottle of medicinal wine was in his bag, but the prince only recognized it as an ordinary fine wine. Seeing the prince's tipsy appearance, the princess of Enda quickly asked, "Prince Eric, can you tell me, do you truly have a beloved? Someone whose love for her far surpasses your love for me?" "What are you talking about?" Deep intoxication was in the prince's dark eyes, the intoxicating fragrance, the potion of oblivion, and the alcohol all influenced his consciousness. He suddenly pointed at the princess of Enda. My dearest love is you, of course. When I lay on the shore like a corpse, it was you who saved me. Upon hearing the prince's words, the princess was overjoyed, as if she had returned from an abyss to heaven. The old witch said from the side. You see, Prince Eric's dearest love is indeed you. So, marry quickly. You two are truly a match made in heaven. Don't wait, absolutely do not wait, this is His Majesty's wish. Of all things, the most important was to quickly complete the wedding of Prince Eric and the princess, and let that mermaid girl turn into sea foam. As long as that annoying mermaid disappeared forever, no one would ever be able to awaken Prince Eric again. The temple bells rang. Heralds rode horses, spreading the news that the prince and princess were about to marry. This blessed couple would exchange vows under the witness of the priest, tonight. People in the streets were incredulous, almost thinking they had misheard. They had originally thought the prince and princess's wedding would take at least several weeks to prepare. Never had any respectable couple not set a wedding date in advance, but instead, after only just meeting, directly proceeded to the wedding hall. How much more so for a princess and a prince? Some said that the prince and princess were so deeply in love that they couldn't wait to enter into marriage immediately, holding a simple wedding at once, and then would follow up with many more grand and lively celebrations. More people speculated that the Prince of Sia Kingdom and the Princess of Enda had met long ago and had already set the wedding date, only announcing it to the public today. Even the Princess of Enda herself didn't quite understand why her father would make such a hasty and rushed arrangement. 1 hour after the prince agreed to the engagement, they were to stand hand in hand and make eternal vows under the witness of the temple priest. But the princess knew she had no right to question or refuse. Her father had arranged her life from the day she was born. To be able to walk down the aisle with the one she loved, she was already content enough. On a ship belonging to the Rose Kingdom, Ariel heard the news of the engagement, the herald's shouts from horseback, and the whispers of people on the ship discussing the prince's marriage. Have you heard? Prince Eric is about to marry the beautiful princess of Enda. Tonight. The court attendants celebrated. Their rebellious prince had finally accepted his king's arrangements and was willing to marry the neighboring princess. Some were confused by this, as they had personally witnessed how much Prince Eric and Ariel loved each other. Ariel herself was too stunned to speak. How can such a thing happen? Eric only left a few hours ago, how could they possibly marry tonight? I have never heard of such a hasty, rushed, and strange wedding. There must be something wrong. Something bad must have happened to Eric himself, someone must have restricted him or done something to him. Ariel realized she had to leave. She had to leave this ship and see Prince Eric with her own eyes to confirm he was safe and sound. Ariel walked out of the cabin but was stopped by a strong and capable Enda soldier. You cannot leave here, I have received orders. Under no circumstances are you to leave here. The bride and groom are about to join hands, and if you appear, the princess will surely be heartbroken and weep. I don't care about any orders. This is a Rose Kingdom ship, you have no right to restrict my movements. Ariel was furious. She called out to the crew members on the ship. They were the prince's accompanying attendants, including servants from the Rose Kingdom palace and a small number of Rose Kingdom soldiers. These people would help her. Several crew members stepped forward, intending to reason with the Enda soldiers. However, the Enda soldiers lined up, looking menacing. Don't think we don't know that this girl once had a scandal with your prince. Now that your prince is about to marry our princess, let this inglorious history pass. How disheartening it would be if this girl, without noble blood and of unknown origin, were to step off the ship, go to the temple, go to the wedding, and intrude upon the sacred moment witnessed by the priest. Although it sounded somewhat reasonable, the crew members felt something was amiss. Everything today felt strange, especially this hasty and rushed wedding. Even so, upon seeing the heroic and imposing demeanor of the Enda soldiers, their excellent armor, and sharp weapons, the crew members dared not argue further. Very good, that's how it should be. Ariel must not come over. As long as she doesn't come, Prince Eric has no chance of regaining consciousness. Inside the wedding temple, the old witch looked out the window, gazing at the situation on the ship in the harbor from afar, revealing an ugly smile. What she didn't know was that the entire plan to turn Ariel into foam had no chance of success from the very beginning because its foundation was completely wrong. What? My son has agreed to marry the princess of Enda. Inside the Rose Kingdom Palace, the king listened to this information in surprise. In this world, due to the existence of magic, real-time remote information transfer became possible. Precisely so, the court witch of Enda conveyed this message with incredible magic. It turns out that the princess of Enda was the woman who saved Prince Eric during the shipwreck, on that terrifying stormy night. Therefore, Prince Eric fell completely in love with her the moment he saw the little princess of Enda. That court witch also said that they are about to be married and asked his king to come as soon as possible to bless the newlyweds. Sitting on the throne, the king couldn't help but sigh at how exquisite Destiny's arrangements were. The prophecy has come true. My child is truly going to marry the princess of a neighboring country. Speaking of which, that little magician from the Rose Kingdom seemed to have left in a hurry yesterday. He should be traveling elsewhere by now, right? I wonder where that little magician is now. What is he doing? His prophecy has come true. Theoretically, I should host a banquet for him. The king then instructed his subordinates. Go prepare the largest ship. I will travel by ship to witness Prince Eric's wedding with my own eyes and witness the alliance between the two nations. This was something agreed upon early on. If Prince Eric agreed to the marriage, the blessed couple would hold their wedding in the imperial city of Enda. And the king of the Rose Kingdom would also attend and negotiate alliance-related agreements with the German emperor in the imperial city of Enda. The only thing this king hadn't expected was that Prince Eric would agree so quickly. And from the fragmentary information conveyed by the old witch, the wedding seemed to be starting very soon. He had originally thought that such a major event would require at least some time for preparation and arrangements. But your king, the weather on the shipping route between the Rose Kingdom and the imperial city of Enda seems not too good these 2 days, we might encounter wind and rain along the way. Never mind that, hurry. I hope we can still make it. The king said eagerly. The king boarded the largest and most luxurious ship. Hand-picked guards escorted the king, their bayonets gleaming. The howling sea wind swept across the king's face, and the vast blue sea was turbulent. Amidst the salute of cannons, the magnificent ship sailed out of the Rose Kingdom's harbor. The wind was strong today. The surging wind pushed the sails, and the turbulent waves made the ship pitch violently. Wine from the attendants, cups spilled occasionally, and sailors running on the deck would sometimes stumble and fall. As the large ship sailed on the vast and magnificent sea, no one noticed a few dark shadows swimming below. Occasionally, something seemed to peek out from the sea, but when the attendants on the ship looked, the figure retreated. They thought the white things they saw were just sea foam. Great Sea King, as the magician Rhine predicted, the king of the Rose Kingdom has indeed set sail recently. And dark clouds are forming, a terrifying storm is brewing in that sea area. In the deep blue sea, a merman scout excitedly informed the Sea King. The Sea King held a golden trident, wore armor made of pearls and shells, and wore a crown, looking majestic. Behind him, many merfolk were already on standby, awaiting the command of the Lord of the Sea. They had waited too long for this day. It's finally here, the moment has finally arrived. The Sea King announced the exciting news to the merfolk behind him. For thousands of years, this will be our chance to build friendship with humans and make them recognize us again. My birthday is today. I feel so much pressure writing this book, like walking on thin ice, and I've been insomniac lately. I talked to my family about it. Should I exercise more? It's necessary to adjust to a positive psychological state that can be sustained long-term. This way, I can also bring everyone a better work. The voice of the Lord of the Sea was filled with passion. For the past dozen centuries, we have been regarded by the humans on land as cursed monsters. They mistakenly believed that our singing brought storms, or that we enchanted sailors, deliberately leading ships into dangerous waters full of deadly currents and reefs. When ships sailed over our kingdom, if sailors saw us, they would shoot poisoned arrows at us. Because in their minds, we were non-human monsters symbolizing disaster. I know that you are all my chosen subjects, those who love humans the most and yearn to understand the upper world the most. Just like my daughter, Princess Ariel, who has already bravely ventured onto land. You are more curious and longing for the world above than anyone else. Today, we will have the honor of using our own strength to wash away all prejudices. That sorcerer promised that he could make merfolk in the sea grow legs to go to land, and also make humans on land grow fishtails to come to the sea. Any common pearl here is worth a fortune to them. And the world on land also has many things that we cannot produce, such as clothes woven from silk and delicious food cooked from cattle and sheep. As long as we succeed, there will be no more barriers between the sea and the land. The Sea King still remembered that a few days ago, Rhine had returned to the deep sea palace and made a prophecy about the future. The scene from that day reappeared in the mind of the Lord of the Sea. "Oh, King of the Sea, I foresee that in the near future, the King of the Shia Kingdom will set sail. At sea, they will encounter an unprecedented great storm. The raging giant waves will destroy their ship and engulf them. I cannot see the exact time this fate will happen, but I know it will not be too distant. And this will be your opportunity." Once, the mermaid princess saved a prince from land and won his heart. And now, the Lord of the Sea will be able to use the same method to let the monarchs on land know the true appearance of the deep-sea merfolk. The Sea King floated to the blue surface of the water, looking up at the increasingly gloomy and dark sky, and the increasingly heavy dark clouds. Silver electric serpents weaved through the clouds. And that dark cloud was quietly approaching the direction of the king's great ship. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Bursts of muffled thunder came, like 1,000 cannons firing in the clouds. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the imperial city of Enda, salutes rang out in many parts of the city, and golden and purple flags fluttered high in the air, celebrating this sacred and romantic moment. Inside the temple, on the altar, fragrant oil burned in expensive oil lamps. Joyful music began to play, the aroma of the oil diffused, and bridesmaids, dressed in precious garments woven from light gauze, held up the veil of the princess of Enda from behind. The bride and groom walked hand in hand, receiving the blessings of the priest. Just then, a desolate, sorrowful yet high-pitched and intense song rang out from afar, carried by the wind into the ears of Prince Eric. The song of the mermaid princess. When this heavenly sound drifted into his ears, Prince Eric, who had not yet recovered from his drunken state, trembled all over. Prince Eric was speechless. The handsome young man held his head, his delicate features distorted by pain, his head feeling as if it would split open. "My head hurts so much, my head hurts so much." He felt as if he had forgotten something. The song evoked some forbidden memory, awakening something that had been erased deep within his memory. What he didn't know was that the song was precisely the one Ariel had sung to him in the palace hall a few days ago, a song about love. The prince felt sadness, his eyes slightly stinging, and the scene before his eyes was covered with a thin mist. But he didn't understand why he should be sad. Isn't today a joyful and festive day? Didn't I happily meet the woman I had thought of day and night, who saved me? Why am I sad? And for whom am I crying? Under the combined effects of alcohol, the enchanting fragrance, and the potion of forgetfulness, Prince Eric only felt his brain muddled and couldn't figure anything out. But his ears could no longer hear the joyful music of the temple, and his eyes could no longer see this sacred wedding ceremony. He only wanted to listen a little longer to the song drifting in from outside the window with the wind, this poignant, bitter, yet beautiful song. So he directly abandoned the bride in her wedding dress, and like a madman, ran straight to the window, gazing at the magnificent ship belonging to the Shia kingdom in the distant harbor. The priests of the temple were stunned, and the princess of Enda, in her beautiful wedding dress, was also bewildered. They watched as the groom of the night abandoned the bride and rushed to the window alone, weeping ceaselessly as he looked out. "Why are you crying, my prince?" the little princess of Enda asked in alarm. She increasingly felt that everything today was wrong. "This is bad," the old witch thought. "My warriors I sent have restrained Ariel on the ship, but Ariel can still sing. She has a voice that can be called perfect even for merfolk. Prince Eric cannot be allowed to listen any longer, his memory will be awakened. No matter what, I must stall until dawn of the next day, until that mermaid melts into white foam." The old witch was not entirely unprepared for the current situation. She cast her gaze towards a magnificent full-length mirror in the corner of the temple, which she had specifically ordered the soldiers to bring in. That mirror had already been enchanted by her with an ancient ritual, it was another one of her contingencies. Amidst the confusion of the guests and priests, who were puzzled and surprised, not understanding what had happened to the prince, the old witch alone stood up, walked quickly to the full-length mirror, and softly chanted a spell. Last time, I went to the Shia kingdom and was killed once due to a moment of carelessness, making it impossible for me to revive for a period of time. But this time is different. This is the imperial city of Enda, my home turf. In this city, I have countless trump cards and contingencies, Enda warriors who obey my commands, a library containing countless secrets of the world, a potion warehouse with thousands of medicinal ingredients, and many items, venues, and buildings enchanted with spells and rituals. Besides that, His Majesty the Emperor of Enda is here. He is a rare super warrior in the world, a monarch of one of the most powerful countries on the Western continent. If I encounter any trouble, he will definitely support me with all his might. Unless it's a legendary sorcerer of the caliber of Black Witch Maleficent, no one can contend with me here alone. Countless thoughts drifted, and as the whispered spell was completed, a faint glow emanated from the surface of the full-length mirror. The eerie glow on the mirror instantly extinguished. It seemed as if nothing had happened. However, the singing drifting from the harbor outside the window had disappeared. All the noisy sounds, including the clamor within the city and the booming of salutes, had vanished. Only the sacred music for the wedding resonated within the temple. The joyous songs flowed, completely replacing the sorrowful, bitter, yet romantic song that had previously drifted in from outside the window. The singing outside has vanished. No, it seems to have become completely quiet outside. However, this was only the perception of the people inside this wedding temple. If someone were standing at the entrance of the temple in the real world at this moment, looking inside, they would discover that the temple had suddenly become empty. Whether it was the groom and bride dressed in expensive clothes, the bridesmaids holding up the wedding dress, or the priests carrying incense and candles, all had disappeared without a trace. And the only person left in the temple was the old witch. The old witch smiled and walked towards the full-length mirror in the corner of the temple, examining the scene in the mirror with interest. The scene inside the mirror was still bustling, and everyone was still there. There was the groom at the window, clutching his head in pain, the bride gently patting the groom's back and comforting him in a low voice, the flustered groomsmen and bridesmaids, and the priests discussing what had happened at the wedding. I have temporarily moved the entire wedding venue into the mirror world. They are all inside a building I replicated with magic. This way, Prince Eric cannot leave the wedding venue, and people outside cannot find their way in. Once I move this full-length mirror away, no one will be able to find them. Even ordinary divination and witchcraft cannot locate a wedding venue that does not exist in the real world. Unless there are magic items specifically enchanted with spells to contact the outside world inside. Oh, right, this is the imperial city of Enda, and I also have a powerful super warrior I can deploy. Even if this mirror is found, it will be useless. The old witch laughed heartily, turning her gaze towards the window. The beautiful mermaid song, praising love, continued to drift in from outside the window, uninterrupted. Sing, you fooled mermaid, just keep singing. Even if you sing until your voice breaks, Prince Eric won't hear you. The old witch snorted disdainfully. At the harbor, inside a luxurious room on a ship from the kingdom of Shia. The source of that beautiful singing was Ariel, singing loudly by the window. She sang with all her might, trying to make her voice as loud as possible, her throat becoming hoarse, yet she dared not stop. I can't help it, Enda's soldiers are guarding the door. I can't leave the room, I can't leave this ship to find Prince Eric. I can only use this method to make Prince Eric hear my voice, Ariel thought. However, even though she had been singing for a long time, nothing had happened. This made Ariel even more disheartened, her spirits gradually sinking to rock bottom. When the first ray of dawn shone down, she would turn into foam. Just then, two childlike figures suddenly materialized behind Ariel. It was the magician boy, Rhine, and the blonde girl, Aurora. Her two human friends she had met in the sea. Ariel, we'll take you off this ship to find Prince Eric. Outside the room, Enda warriors were taking turns guarding the door, and another person ran over from a distance to report information. We've received orders not to worry about how the girl sings. Let her sing whatever she wants. The Enda warrior, clearly the officer, nodded slightly and instructed his subordinates. Keep a close eye on this room. As long as we hear the singing, we'll know the girl is still singing inside. Once the singing stops for more than 10 seconds, you go in and check. No matter what, make sure that girl doesn't leave this ship. Inside the room. But, Rhine, Aurora, there are still Enda warriors guarding outside. As soon as I step out of this room, they'll stop me. Oh, right, your magic can definitely take me out of thin air, just like you can come in out of thin air. But those Enda soldiers will occasionally open the door and peek in, and they'll say a few words to me to confirm I'm here. They'll discover me as soon as I leave. They'll definitely report it to their superiors. The more Ariel spoke, the more anxious her expression became. There must be something wrong here. The Enda soldiers must be deliberately blocking me, not wanting me to see Prince Eric. Eric must have run into something. Rhine smiled faintly. No need to worry. He pulled out a seashell, placed it on the table, and then gently clapped his hands twice towards the seashell. The seashell's mouth, at his fingertips suddenly opened, and beautiful, mournful, bitter, yet enchanting songs poured out. Ariel's singing. My singing. This is my singing. Ariel was stunned. She had heard before that the beautiful songs of mermaids could not be recorded by any magic. Even if copied, there would be obvious flaws, unable to be as pure and heavenly as the original. Otherwise, the sea hag would not have demanded her voice as payment back then. It was for this reason that when a mermaid with an incredibly beautiful voice turned into foam, no magic or item could reproduce her singing. But what this seashell was singing was indeed her song. Even Ariel herself couldn't distinguish any difference. Let this seashell sing here, Rhine said with a smile, let's go. Rhine grabbed Aurora with one hand and Ariel with the other. The figures of the three rapidly blurred and disappeared from the room. Only the seashell continued to sing its melodious song. Outside the room, the Enda warriors heard the uninterrupted singing from inside the door, knowing that the girl was still in the room, and all felt relieved. Just then, the sailors on the ship and the Enda warriors all felt that the ship was rocking more violently than before. Look, so many fish are gathering. At this moment, a sailor noticed the anomaly in the sea and shouted, pointing at the water below. Countless fish and sea beasts, large and small, gathered near this large ship of the kingdom of Shia, like loyal listeners to a song. Some large fish even occasionally bumped the ship with their bodies, causing it to rock slightly. The mermaid princess's singing attracted too many listeners from the sea. We can't let these large fish and sea beasts gather anymore, they might capsize the ship. When that happens, there will definitely be chaos, and the girl might escape. How strange. Where did so many fish come from? The Enda warrior's officer frowned. Assign one person to watch the door, and the rest of you come with me to drive these fish away. So the Enda warriors took out bows and arrows, heavy crossbows, and other similar weapons, attacking the large fish and sea beasts near the ship. They temporarily had no time to check or worry about whether anyone was still in the room from which the beautiful singing continued to drift. Inside the replicated temple in the mirror world. Eric, are you alright? The princess patted Prince Eric's shoulder. Are you feeling unwell? Do you need to rest? She had clearly seen Prince Eric's pained expression just now and was worried for her beloved. Everything today feels strange. This rushed, hasty wedding, Prince Eric who has been in a daze, the song so beautiful it almost took my breath away, and Eric's pained expression after hearing that song. Everything seems beautiful yet strangely off. It's supposed to be a wonderful day where I unexpectedly reunited with my beloved, yet these things keep happening. Someone must have done something. There must be arrangements happening that I don't understand. I wonder if it's my father or someone else. It's always been like this, ever since I was born. I'm always ordered by my father to do all sorts of things, to follow arrangements from above, yet I know nothing and can't have my own opinions. Being assigned to go to the temple in the forest to learn royal etiquette, but my sisters don't need to. Marrying a prince from a neighboring country as per agreement. And after only meeting a few hours ago, a hasty wedding is about to take place. Am I supposed to do something about this? Countless thoughts flitted through the princess's mind. She helped Prince Eric lie down on a soft long seat cushion. Why don't you rest for a bit, my prince? She then waved to the priest officiating the wedding ceremony. Prince Eric is not feeling well right now. Let him rest for a bit, and we'll continue the ceremony later. Just then, the old witch, who had inexplicably disappeared for a while, walked over. She too had entered this mirrored world. Your Royal Highness, the wedding ceremony is only missing the final part. I hope there won't be any delay. Once Prince Eric rests and recovers, please complete it as soon as possible, the old witch urged. The little princess nodded slightly, but only stroked Prince Eric's hair. It's too strange. It feels like my wedding has a special significance, so much so that the powerful first royal sorceress keeps urging me, always wanting me to finish the wedding quickly. Why is that? Could it be that something special will happen after Eric's wedding is completed? A gust of wind blew, shifting the heavy dark clouds in the night sky and obscuring the silver moon. On the streets near the port, many red lanterns lit up, and people celebrated the wedding of the prince and princess. No one noticed that in the shadows of an alley, three young people were passionately discussing. Without a doubt, this is aimed at Ariel. It must be that old witch again, Aurora said. Ariel will turn into sea foam on the first dawn after the wedding ends. We must go and disrupt that wedding. Don't worry, Ryan said. He didn't explain why, but his tone carried a reassuring power. I promise, Ariel will be fine. Ryan smiled and patted Aurora's shoulder. Future King, your main task now is to command and lead, how about it? If you find yourself at a loss, I'll be there to back you up. Aurora nodded. She was clearly the most worried about Ariel's safety. Moreover, as the future king, she had to practice this kind of thing. Aurora pointed towards the distant temple. I've already checked. The place where they are holding the wedding is that temple. It was already surrounded by layers of soldiers. The soldiers faced outwards, holding gleaming bayonets. They were all elite warriors hand-picked by the old witch, who had once fought against supernatural monsters and terrifying enemies wielding magic. Can you teleport directly into the wedding venue, Mage Rhine? Just like before, Ariel asked. Rhine shook his head. I can feel that a powerful spell has been cast there, which can interfere with my teleportation magic and direct scrying divination. I can teleport directly there, but there's a chance of an accident. The final teleportation destination might be distorted to an unexpected place. The young mage still looked calm on the surface, appearing confident and not at all saddened by the current urgent time. Then let's forget it. Let's think of another way. See if there's a way to get past those guarding soldiers. Ariel lowered her head. She couldn't let her friend risk his life for her. Aurora, however, laughed. Don't worry. Because your family is here today too. My family. Ariel was stunned. Bang. A huge wave crashed against the shore, breaking into white foam. This was the royal city port of Enda, where hundreds of magnificent ships were moored, most of them warships from this maritime empire that had conquered foreign lands. However, something seemed to be wrong at sea now. Shadows gathered beneath the sea at this port. Soon, Rhine and the other two in the alley heard the commotion from all directions. Oh no, something happened at the port. Huge waves suddenly rose there. I've never seen such big waves. So many fish, so many strange sea creatures, all acting as if they've gone mad, causing trouble at the port, attacking ships. More than a dozen warships have already been holed. They are leaking furiously now, and the crew members are frantically making repairs. The Emperor of Thunder has sunk. Who did it? Is it enemy spies? Today is the joyful day of the wedding between the Prince of the Kingdom of Shia and our little princess. How could something like this happen? Quickly dispatch people to the port. The entire area around the royal city port was in chaos. People looking like soldiers constantly ran around delivering messages. Passers-by who didn't understand the situation whispered to each other, asking what had happened. Merchants dressed in fine clothes led large groups of servants to the port to check if their ships were affected, and were surprised to find that only the Empire's warships were damaged. The temple where the wedding was held was basically next to the port, and the soldiers guarding the temple were also in a state of chaos at this time. People dressed in the most splendid clothes, looking like officers, commanded them, but their voices were also drowned out in the chaotic noise. Squad leaders constantly led soldiers to abandon their original tasks and run to the port. What is this? Seeing the chaotic scene and hearing the constant clamor, Ariel held her breath. She had vaguely guessed who had helped them, and her eyes felt a little sore. The soldiers of the Sea Kingdom have been dispatched. They are driving fierce fish and sea creatures never seen by anyone in the sea, puncturing Enda's warships. Rhine calmly stated the facts. My father's soldiers. They still care about me. Ariel was stunned. Ever since arriving on shore, Ariel had not seen her family again. Neither her great-grandmother, who wore a silver crown and was old-fashioned but deeply loved her, nor the majestic yet benevolent Sea King, nor her beautiful sisters. Rhine smiled. From beginning to end, everyone in the Sea Kingdom, including your sisters, your great-grandmother, and your father, has been closely following the development between you and Prince Eric, always ready to help you. I used magic to broadcast the events on land to them. They witnessed the progression of your feelings with the prince, and they are all blessing you. Ariel's eyes stung, and her voice was a little choked. So, they've always cared about me so much. Clearly, this was just my selfish decision. I cruelly and selfishly abandoned them to pursue the human society I was curious about, to pursue an immortal soul and a love. Now they have to do so much for me. Rhine shook his head. No, don't think that way, mermaid princess. Your marriage to Prince Eric is absolutely not just about you personally. I know, just as Prince Eric said before. In your envisioned perfect ending, it would only be like this. The king of the kingdom of Shia agrees to your marriage, you walk hand in hand with him in a wedding dress, and you become partners under the blessing of the temple priest and amidst celebratory songs. Everyone in the entire kingdom of Shia blesses you, saying that you are one of the few loving king and queen in the kingdom's history. But just as the prince said, you will be forever separated from your family, never able to return to that deep blue kingdom. And 100 years later, you and Eric will be buried in the same tomb, just like the many king and queen that the kingdom of Shia has already had. History books will only record that once upon a time, a king of the kingdom of Shia picked up a girl on the coast and finally married this beautiful girl as his queen, and they lived a loving life together. No one will know where you came from, no one will understand the sea kingdom beneath the myriad waves. Nothing changed at all. Perhaps centuries later, there will be another mermaid like you, perhaps also a mermaid princess or a mermaid prince, but most likely just a commoner, who will fall in love with a human on land, yearn for life on land and the colorful human world, and may even accidentally discover the secret of an immortal soul, and desire to obtain an immortal soul just like you. He or she will, like you, tell their elders naive fantasies, and then be met with a cold shower. That mermaid might give up then, or might turn to seek the help of the sea hag or some other magician, and after paying a terrible price, step onto land. That ordinary mermaid does not have the proud status of a princess, nor does he or she have a beautiful singing voice like yours, and will inevitably have to pay a price unimaginable to ordinary people. And this price will hinder the future path of love. He or she will also have to experience all the hardships you experienced, bear all the sorrow you endured, and bathe in all the helplessness you bathed in. All the obstacles you and Prince Eric encountered on your path to love must be experienced again. This mermaid might succeed, or might fail, the latter being significantly more likely. Finally, his or her heart will crack open and turn into unknown foam on the waves. Even if that mermaid succeeds, it will only be limited to that. The priests and guests who bless this newlywed couple do not know that one of the bride or groom comes from the Azure Sea Kingdom they have never understood. When these guests finish their words of blessing, leave the sacred wedding ceremony, and step onto their ships, they will still tell stories of mermaids bringing disaster, believing that mermaids' songs will lure ships into stormy waters. They will panic and cry when they hear mermaids' songs, thinking they are about to be swallowed by a storm. They will mercilessly shoot poisoned arrows when they see mermaids resting on reefs, celebrating the death of these non-human monsters that bring disaster, yet not knowing that those who died at their hands might be the parents of the newly blessed groom or bride. Then, centuries pass, and the above stories will be replayed again and again. A few more white foams will appear on the waves, and a few more blessed couples will appear in the temple, nothing more. At this point, Rhine's tone had a slight ripple. He couldn't help but glance at the blonde girl beside him, who was listening intently. The last time he spoke a long string of words and felt his heart fluctuate was 10 years ago, at Aurora's baptism ceremony, describing another path of destiny to the king and queen. Since I have come to this world, I must change something, Rhine thought. After listening to Rhine's words, Ariel's vision was already blurred, and the world seemed to be covered by a thin mist. So what? What exactly should I do to prevent all this from happening again, to ensure that my future kin do not have to cross the sorrow I once crossed, and walk the difficult path I walked? How can I make humans on land understand us and no longer view my kin as monsters who bring disaster? My magician friend. Ariel asked hoarsely. You only need to marry Prince Eric, But unlike what was originally envisioned, it is absolutely not to hide your identity and marry the prince as a human. You must let everyone know that you are a mermaid from the Sea Kingdom. At that time, both humans on land and mermaids in the sea will bless you. This will be a miracle never seen since the appearance of the Sea Kingdom. Rhine said seriously. As for the rest, your sisters, great-grandmother, and father will take care of it. That's why they participated in this event today. The people of the Sea Kingdom are not just active in this port. On the shipping route between Enda and the Kingdom of Xia, your father is busy. This is the most important point I want you to understand. You don't have to feel guilty for receiving help from your family. What they are doing is not just for you, but also for the future of the entire Sea Kingdom. What you need now is to see Prince Eric. With that, Rhine softly chanted a spell. In a cloud of white mist, the three of them simultaneously transformed into three birds and flew towards the temple where the wedding was being held. And behind them, at the port, another battleship sank amidst confused wails and exclamations. Clang! The wooden planks shattered, the mast crashed into the water, stirring up large waves, and the magnificent flag, interwoven with purple and gold, also fell into the sea. This magnificent flag, which once belonged to the Royal Navy of Enda, was now sinking past the mermaids. We have followed the magician Rhine's instructions and scuttled the 12th battleship of Enda. It's quite simple. Human warships are designed to fight strong enemies floating on the surface of the sea, or structures at ports, but they cannot defend against underwater attacks. The area near the port is already in chaos. The people of the sea swam to and fro, relaying the news to each other. Among them, 5 mermaid princesses, elegantly dressed and adorned with shells, pearls, and oysters, were all looking up at the chaotic moving shadows on the sea surface. They knew that their sister was in that direction. Ariel, you must succeed. You bear the future of the Sea Kingdom. Around them, mermaids were busy in the sea. They were either directing large fish and sea beasts, or swimming around with sharp knives and drills, shuttling back and forth beneath the seabed, making the deep blue water ripple endlessly. The deep blue seawater swayed and flowed. Mermaids swam nimbly, dodging the cold undercurrents in the sea, relaying messages to each other, and reporting on the situation on the surface of the sea. Great Sea King, there is no doubt that a storm is coming. This will be an incredibly terrifying storm, a once-in-a-century event in this sea area. That human king's magnificent ship will surely be swallowed by the giant waves. His ship, despite its massive size and beautiful, abundant decorations, is merely a vain show, lacking the strength to withstand the storm, and will absolutely not survive the cruel storm that is to come. The mermaids reported what they had observed to the monarch of the sea. For mermaids, they understood the temperament of the sea best. They could naturally sense when a storm was about to arrive, and in the past, some mermaids liked to surface and sing at such times. The Sea King, wearing a crown and holding a golden trident, smiled. Good, we'll follow them. On the magnificent ship, on the surface of the sea. The king of the Kingdom of Xia had not yet realized that an unprecedented great storm was about to arrive. In fact, compared to when they first set sail, the sea was unusually calm now. Bright moonlight scattered on the waves, and the sea reflected the moon's silver glow, like waves stirring fine silver foil. What wonderful weather this is! The king looked at the calm sea, drinking the wine from his golden goblet. The wind was quite strong when we first set out, but now everything is getting better. Yes, Your Majesty. Sailors who often sail the seas all say that if one hears the song of a mermaid or sees the beautiful figure of a mermaid resting on a reef, disaster will descend upon the sea. But if no mermaid is seen throughout the entire voyage, then the sea will show its gentlest side, the wind will be incredibly soft, the waves will be only small ripples, and in the distance, one can hear the occasional cry of a seagull. The attendants said so. I've heard such legends since I was a child. But tell me, why is this? The king gazed at the tranquil sea, lost in thought. I don't believe every single mermaid has the ability to summon a storm. That's too exaggerated. As a monarch of a kingdom, even if it was only a small country, his knowledge of magic surpassed that of most people in the world. He had seen magicians display their miraculous power more than once. The king believed that magic capable of summoning a storm must be quite powerful, and absolutely impossible for just any mermaid to achieve. The attendants also fell into thought. They had heard similar legends many times before, but had never deeply considered them. Perhaps it's because mermaids don't bring storms, but rather, after sailors hear mermaids' songs, they unconsciously deviate from safe routes and sail into dangerous waters where storms are imminent. The legend of mermaids enchanting sailors is also quite popular, an attendant said. Or perhaps it's because mermaids understand the nature and temperament of the sea too well, and can predict the arrival of storms in advance, and like to sing on the surface of the sea when a storm is about to arrive, another attendant said. The second attendant was also Prince Eric's attendant. 3 days ago, the prince told the attendants stories of the sea in the palace, specifically mentioning this. But what Prince Eric didn't say was that the magician Rhine and Ariel specifically told him to say this in front of the attendants. The king listened to the answers of the 2 attendants, nodded thoughtfully, and continued to gaze at the tranquil and beautiful sea illuminated by the moonlight. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A strong gust of wind suddenly blew. What's happening? Is the wind picking up? The ship suddenly lurched. The sky seemed to darken slightly. The tranquil moonlight that had been cast upon everyone's faces disappeared. When people looked up, they discovered that a giant dark cloud had obscured the silver moon. The sea suddenly grew furious. The waves rose high, heavy dark clouds enveloped the sky, and lightning flashed in the distance. Ah! A terrible storm is coming. The sailors cried out in panic, quickly lowering the sails. The tide suddenly surged, like a massive black mountain, crashing over and causing the magnificent ship to rock violently, making the king fall onto the deck. Wave after wave, they sought to snap the ship's mast. Icy rain poured down. Silver lightning streaked through the dark clouds, striking down occasionally and turning the night into day. The large ship swayed on the raging sea. Compared to the towering waves, even the largest ship in the Rose Kingdom seemed too small. Crack, crack, crack. The ship emitted cracking sounds, its beautifully painted planks broken by the raging waves, and its mast snapped by the strong winds. The large ship tilted, half submerged in the sea. Splash! Icy seawater poured into the cabin. Protect the king. The chief petty officer gave orders to the soldiers and sailors on the ship, but his command was drowned out by the strong winds and sudden rain. But even if they could hear the command, what could they do? The elite soldiers helped the king, surrounding the monarch in the middle, maintaining balance amidst the strong winds and heavy rain, to prevent the king from being injured by collapsing masts or boxes and barrels scattering in the storm. Icy rain lashed down on the faces of the king and the soldiers. Beyond that, they could do nothing. They had sharp bayonets but could not wound the storm. They had beautiful shields and armor but could not resist the sea's fury. Oh my gods! Why must I encounter a storm at this very moment? The king lamented. Not long before, he had just received the joyous news that his child was about to marry the princess of Enda. He hadn't even had the chance to personally see Prince Eric dressed in beautiful and luxurious attire, holding the hand of his bride, who was also adorned in a precious wedding gown. I wonder how Eric is doing. The king leaned on the ship's railing, enduring the icy rain and biting wind, thousands of thoughts swirling in his mind. Those facing death always have many memories. Eric, though you are a rebellious child who loves to dream, you possess a commendable courage, a persistence to never give up until you achieve your goals. You are indeed sometimes immature. But who is born steady? And who hasn't experienced the wildness of youth? In any case, you are far, far better than your younger brother, who travels abroad, is playful, lustful, and good for nothing. You are now the crown prince of the Rose Kingdom, and you are destined to become the king of the Rose Kingdom in the future. Of course, what I am thinking now, you cannot hear. I'm afraid I won't be able to see you one last time. Next, you will have a wedding with that princess in the imperial city of Enda. Under the illumination of thousands of oil lamps on the altar, you will place your hand on the bride's chest and speak your vows to her amidst joyful songs. When you learn the terrible news of your father's death at sea, you will bring that beautiful princess of the neighboring country back to the Rose Kingdom. Then, you will ascend the throne in my stead, becoming the new king of the Rose Kingdom. That little princess will become the queen of the kingdom. Fortunately, before this, I have already advanced the alliance between our two countries quite a bit. You only need to complete the last small part. From then on, the merchant ships of the Rose Kingdom will travel unimpeded on the high seas, and the royal pirates of Enda will no longer attack our ships and fishermen. Their royal navy's reputation for dominating the sea will protect our ships. From then on, the country will become increasingly prosperous, and everything will slowly get better. What a pity. You are still too young. Regarding the intrigues in the court, and how to select wise ministers and avoid sycophantic courtiers, I won't have the chance to teach you slowly. Too many thoughts and sentiments flashed through the king's mind. At the end of these thoughts, the king felt a biting chill. It was the icy cold of the seawater. He had fallen into the sea. Salty and wet seawater flooded his nasal cavity, eroding the king's consciousness. In his desperate struggle, the king saw many nimble figures, passing through the raging waves at an incredible speed, skillfully weaving around the floating wreckage of ship beams and planks. Is someone swimming in the sea? Who swims so skillfully and so fast? Better than the strongest swimmer I've ever seen. In his blurred consciousness, the king felt a sense of doubt. Immediately after, he noticed that the lower halves of these figures were not human legs but beautiful fish tails. Mermaids. Many mermaids. Hundreds of mermaids. This astonishing sight made the king suddenly clear-headed for a few moments. He flailed his hands in the seawater, wanting to call for help to those mermaids. This sounded incredible, but subconsciously, he actually felt that those mermaids would save him, perhaps because he had just heard the saying, "Mermaids are harmless," from his attendant. However, immediately after, the raging waves slammed him back into the water. In the icy, biting seawater, the king felt a strong hand grasp his arm. Immediately after, this powerful and reassuring force lifted the king out of the sea, ensuring his head was above the surface so he could breathe fresh air. The king glanced at the person who had saved him from behind. It was a valiant man with a fish tail, wearing a crown carved from coral, and draped in a robe woven from thousands of fish scales. His strong left hand had pulled him up, and in his right hand, he held a golden trident. Wow! Many humans have fallen into the water here. Their ship seems to have been hit by a terrible storm. Do you remember? Humans cannot breathe underwater, we cannot let them die in vain. The ruler of the sea raised his trident, giving orders to the other mermaids. The Sea King's voice was incredibly majestic, echoing across the entire sea, even overpowering the howling wind and the pattering of icy rain on the water's surface. Save them, save all the humans here, and take them to the nearest island. The Sea King said. The mermaids heard the Sea King's command and began to lift up one fallen soldier, attendant, and sailor after another, holding their heads above the water. Many of the awakened soldiers, sailors, and attendants could hardly believe the sight before them. Mermaids, rumored to bring disaster and lure sailors into dangerous waters, were actually rescuing them. Some fallen soldiers were incredibly panicked when they saw the mermaids, fearing these terrifying monsters would eat them, but when they discovered these mermaids were actually there to help, they were so surprised they thought they were dreaming. Innumerable thoughts flashed through the minds of those who had fallen into the water. Aren't those mermaids? So many mermaids. I've never seen so many mermaids gathered together. Gods. The mermaids are helping us. They seem genuinely sincere. I knew it, those legends about mermaids were just to scare children. They waved their hands, signaling for nearby mermaids to save them, shouting loudly, begging for the mermaids, help. Never in the history of sea and land had such a thing happened. Sailors longed to see mermaids, and were ecstatic as they swam towards them. Oh, sea, I pray to you, I pray you extinguish your fury. The Sea King raised his trident high. Let me and my people take you to land. At the Enda Imperial City Port. Near the temple where the prince and princess were to be married. Due to the great chaos at the port, the soldiers guarding the temple also fell into disarray. Several officers were directing each other, or reporting chaotic matters, such as which ship had sunk again, or which giant sea beast had suddenly appeared. They continuously dispatched personnel to the warships at the port, to repair damage on leaky ships. The soldiers stationed there were reduced by more than half in an instant. Occasionally, even giant flying fish would leap out of the sea, directly splashing into the midst of these soldiers, causing even greater commotion. In such a chaotic situation, no one would notice that three birds quietly opened a window and flew into the temple. Bang! As soon as the three white doves entered the temple, Rhine dispelled the transformation magic, allowing the trio to revert to their original forms in a cloud of mist. Strange, isn't this supposed to be the wedding venue? Why is it empty? Aurora exclaimed. The temple, which should have been bustling, was empty. On the altar, the fragrant oil in the expensive oil lamps was still burning, golden light illuminating the temple in the night, yet no one was there. Now, the bride and groom, the priests, the band responsible for playing music, and the other nobles were all trapped in the world replicated by that full-length mirror. And that full-length mirror, of course, had long since been moved by the old witch's people and hidden in a secret location. To prevent anyone from breaking the mirror and releasing Prince Eric. As expected, it's not here. Rhine showed no surprise upon seeing this scene. Clearly, the old witch of Enda was involved in the entire plan. And as the first witch of Enda, her magical attainments definitely surpassed those of Violet Fairy, the leader of the 12 good witches of the Rose Kingdom, so she would certainly set up numerous obstacles. Our enemy already knows of Ariel's mermaid identity. The purpose of this hurried wedding is to make her turn into morning foam. The other party is trying to prevent us, especially Ariel, from meeting Prince Eric. Obviously, as long as we can meet, it will bring a positive turn of fate, causing her schemes and Enda's conspiracy to automatically dissipate. Despite this, Rhine remained calm. Teacher, please help me find out where Prince Eric is now. Aurora said. Rhine nodded slightly, took out a sparkling crystal ball, and placed Prince Eric's button on top of it. A brilliant blue light burst forth from the crystal ball. After quickly examining the scene in the crystal ball, Rhine concluded. Prince Eric is not nearby, nor is he very far away, but rather, it's as if he doesn't exist in this world. Therefore, he and the little princess of Enda have been transferred by that old witch or other Enda court magicians to another world, a secret realm outside of reality. As long as I find the door to that space, I can communicate with it and rescue Prince Eric. Aurora clenched her fists in anger. That old witch, it's her handiwork again, as expected. She immediately pulled out the tinderbox from her pocket and quickly struck it. With a whoosh, a large dog appeared before Aurora, its eyes almost as big as teacups. Find Prince Eric. Aurora gave the command. The dog sniffed left and right, then shook its head, sticking out its tongue at its short master, indicating it could not complete the instruction. Is it because Prince Eric isn't in the real world? Aurora had an epiphany, and she gave a new instruction. Find the entrance and exit to another space. In the mirror world, inside the replicated temple. Everyone had not yet realized that they were already in another world. They didn't know that the serene beauty outside the window was merely an artificial illusion, nor did they know that the temple's doors could no longer be opened to leave. Outside the window, the peaceful scene remained. Stars twinkled in the night sky, a breeze blew past the silver moon emerging from behind dark clouds. Ships occasionally entered and exited the harbor. The streets were lit with red lanterns, celebrating the wedding of the prince and princess. There was no clamor. Time was peaceful. Inside the temple, the bands continued to play joyful music. Everyone was oblivious to the chaos unfolding in the real world at the Enda Imperial City Harbor. After resting for a while, Prince Eric recovered somewhat, but he was still muddled. The effects of alcohol, the mental confusion caused by memory loss due to the drug, and the intoxicating scent emanating from the little princess of Enda, multiple factors combined to leave Prince Eric disoriented, his mind a chaotic mess. Quickly, Your Royal Highness, let's continue the sacred ceremony. Today is a day of great joy. Isn't the prince before you your beloved? The old witch urged from the side. The little princess of Enda nodded gently. Since earlier, she had tried to delay many times, giving the reason, Eric still doesn't seem well, let's wait a bit longer. However, every minute or two, the old witch would urge her again. It seemed impossible to delay any further. It's so strange. This is the wedding I should have anticipated the most, yet now I keep delaying it, the princess thought. The princess took Prince Eric's hand and walked back up to the flower-adorned altar. On the altar, vibrant red flowers bloomed, their fragrance intoxicating the heart. 1,000 golden oil lamps emitted warm light, illuminating the exquisite faces of the prince and princess. Joyful music floated in the air. Because Prince Eric's condition didn't seem to have recovered, he couldn't even say his vows, only performing a few gestures to symbolically complete the ceremony. The priest announced the wedding concluded. Seeing this, the old witch breathed a sigh of relief. The wedding is almost complete. When the first ray of dawn illuminates the flag of Enda Imperial City tomorrow morning, everything will be set. I hid that mirror in an incredibly secret place. No one can find it, no one can find Prince Eric and the princess in the mirror. As she thought, the old witch gently tapped the tightly locked temple door, where a faint blue vortex, visible only to her, appeared. This vortex undoubtedly led to the real world. At this moment, everyone was focused on the bride and groom at the altar, no one noticed the old witch's movements. The old witch bent down and slipped into the vortex. Next, I should go outside and deal with any potential emergencies. Speaking of which, it seems to be in utter chaos outside. Near the Enda Imperial City Harbor. There were chaotic shouts everywhere, the sound of horses' hooves as cavalry rode by, and the hurried footsteps of military boots on the ground. In such a chaotic scene, a dog with eyes as big as teacups darted through the night, at most causing a few gasps, but failing to attract more attention. Wait, I just saw a particularly large dog run past. Never mind it, it might be some magical creature conjured by a court magician. I remember now, I saw that dog. It was on the battlefield of the war with Rose Kingdom half a year ago. That dog bit my officer, threw him into the air, and let him fall to his death. I won't forget that terrifying scene even in my nightmares. How is that terrifying dog here? Don't worry about it so much, it's just a very big dog. Hurry to the harbor, a group of terrifying large fish are attacking the ships there. Rhine, Aurora, and Ariel followed the dog, darting left and right through the streets of the Imperial City. At this moment, Ariel was incredibly grateful that the magic potion provided by Rhine had no walking like knives side effect. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to run through the streets like this and would have become a despised burden. No, I can't find it. The instructions are too vague, and there are too many misleading targets. Aurora was both surprised and anxious. She noticed that the dog would stop in front of many full-length mirrors throughout the city. Sometimes it would dart into clothing shops and run to a mirror, other times it would run to a house and sniff a large mirror hanging outside the door. Every time they reached a mirror, Rhine would hold up the crystal ball to it. A ghostly blue light would immediately burst forth from the crystal ball. Then, the little magician would shake his head, indicating that Prince Eric was not in that mirror. Clearly, in this city, at least several hundred mirrors have been enchanted by that old witch in advance. Theoretically, every mirror is an entrance and exit to another space, fitting the search target you set for the dog, Rhine explained. Of course, that old witch should only be able to activate one of them at a time. Prince Eric and the little princess of Enda must be hidden in that one mirror. Then how are we supposed to find it? Aurora panicked. Ariel is burdened with a curse. If the problem isn't solved before dawn tomorrow, Ariel will turn into sea foam. Ariel also clenched her fists, lowering her head. Alas, I'm so useless, I can't help them at all. I can't do anything to help find Prince Eric. The mermaid princess wept in her heart. Oh, right, that magic potion that makes mermaids grow legs again. Since it can turn Ariel back into a mermaid, can it remove the curse on Ariel? Aurora asked. Isn't the curse because a mermaid without an immortal soul transformed into the appearance of a noble human, which was seen as an overstepping by the world, and thus cursed by the world? No, Rhine said with certainty. As early as when Ariel drank the first magic potion, the curse was already placed. Simply turning back into a mermaid cannot remove it. There is indeed a way to lift that curse, but it's much more difficult. Only by having Ariel personally plunge a knife into the heart of her beloved, letting the blood flow onto her feet, will the world forgive the mermaid's transgression and turn her back into a mermaid, thus lifting the curse. From then on, no matter how many more magic potions she drinks, she will never be able to grow human legs again. Ariel's voice trembled slightly. Even if Eric were right in front of me, I wouldn't do that. Rhine knew she was telling the truth, because that was her choice in the original story. Oh, right, Aurora thought of another reason for Ariel to be safe. Prince Eric already loves Ariel so much. Although they are not married, they are much more devoted than many already married couples. In their constant companionship, could Ariel have already gained an immortal soul, so the curse is actually already ineffective? Rhine smiled. The direction you're thinking in is very correct. Love is not limited to wedding vows, not limited to that one ceremony. Theoretically, as long as the two spend enough time together, Ariel can also gradually gain an immortal soul. Those vows of eternal life and the sacred ceremony are merely an acceleration of soul sharing, a shortcut to gaining an immortal soul. Aurora's eyes lit up, but just as she was about to rejoice, she heard Rhine say again. However, the time the two have spent together is still too short. And at first, the prince only saw Ariel as a substitute for the woman who saved him. From the moment Prince Eric learned of Ariel's true identity and predicament until now, it has only been a few days. Without the sacred wedding ceremony as a shortcut, just these few days, and just the love of Eric alone, are not enough for that immortal soul to grow strong within Ariel and expel the curse. Aurora immediately became disheartened and turned her back. Ariel's face also clouded over. Ariel, actually, you don't have to worry so much. Rhine lowered his voice, leaned closer to the bowed head Ariel, and said in an almost inaudible tone. I promise you, even if dawn comes, you will be fine. Rhine's words were calm, yet they carried a confidence that inspired unconditional trust. Why? Rhine said I'd be fine. Why did he say it so quietly? Ariel couldn't understand Rhine's words, but she chose to believe him. Teacher. An anxious Aurora looked at Rhine. I'm at a loss now. Please help me. Rhine calmly said. When I was trying to successfully concoct a medicinal wine that could turn human legs into a fish tail, I suddenly received a revelation of fate. Fate is so unpredictable, occasionally giving random hints. In the mirror world, inside the replicated temple, joyful music filled the air, and behind the bride and groom, many oil lamps emitted a warm light, like scattered stars in the night. Everyone looked at the prince and princess on the altar, sincerely wishing them well. Today's wedding was too rushed, and many who should have witnessed the prince and princess's marriage did not have time to arrive. The people at the wedding mainly consisted of musicians, temple priests responsible for presiding over the ceremony, and some noble guests dragged in by the old witch to fill the numbers. Next, let the bride and groom drink the celebratory wine, the priest announced. Eric was still dazed, not yet recovered from the mental shock of losing his memories, and was acting almost instinctively. He poured the brown wine into a glass and drank it all. Wait a moment, Eric. The little princess of Enda suddenly noticed a problem and kindly reminded him, you seem to have taken the wrong wine. Taken the wrong, the bewildered Prince Eric murmured the words. He looked at the empty wine bottle on the table. That bottle, which had originally contained brown medicinal wine, was now completely empty. Prince Eric didn't remember who gave him the wine, but as soon as he saw the bottle, he felt an inexplicable warmth and familiarity. If something happens to me, I should drink this wine, Prince Eric instinctively thought. It was this instinctive intuition that made him drink the medicinal wine. Suddenly, Prince Eric couldn't stand steady and stumbled to the ground. Ah! Help! What happened to Prince Eric? Alarmed shouts rang out among the crowd. Even the priest responsible for reciting blessings turned pale with fright. Noticing everyone looking at her with surprise, the little princess of Enda also shrieked in alarm, her face filled with terror. Prince Eric first froze, then lowered his head to look at his lower body. His legs had disappeared at some point, and his lower body had turned into a fish tail. He looked exactly like the mermaid of legend. Monster, a mermaid. Why did Prince Eric turn into a mermaid? Oh my goodness, what happened? The musicians stopped playing, the groomsmen and bridesmaids hid in corners, and everyone looked at Prince Eric, who had turned into a monster, with fear. Only the little princess of Enda remained standing, her gaze still gentle as ever, though filled with horror. Eric, what's wrong with you? You must be hiding some secret, aren't you? Prince Eric trembled, gripping his fish tail with both hands, feeling the smoothness of the scales and the sensation of his hands touching the tail. This confirmed to him that it was his own tail. He stared straight at the beautiful fish tail, completely lost in thought. It wasn't until his vision blurred and the world seemed to be covered in a hazy mist that Prince Eric realized, his eyes had inexplicably filled with tears. He remembered. He remembered everything. In the past, people on land must have looked at that girl and her kind in the same way, right? Prince Eric remembered another girl with the same fish tail, and he recalled the scene he had once seen in the crystal ball. That girl swimming past broken bedboards and masts, completely disregarding the risk of being hit herself, saving him in the raging waves. He remembered the determination with which that girl swam into the coral forest to ask the sea witch for a magic potion. He remembered walking through the palace corridor with the girl's hand in his. every passerby praising that they had never seen such a graceful posture, because those legs were transformed from this very fish tail. All the forgotten memories resurfaced. Because those memories were not traces on the beach, destined to vanish after a single tide, but rather the bitterness and joy carved into hard rock, which could only be covered, but never erased. Ariel, my Ariel! Prince Eric shrieked. Where is Ariel? Where am I? Why am I here? He was both bewildered and terrified, looking left and right. The confused memories of the past hour rushed in, mainly this hasty and absurd wedding, which felt like a nightmare. Hearing Prince Eric call out a stranger's name, and recalling the prince's strange behavior and inconsistent words earlier, the little princess of Enda vaguely guessed something, and her eyes welled up slightly. I remember, I understand everything now, Prince Eric shouted. I was cursed, someone made me forget my beloved, all to make me participate in this wedding. Prince Eric wriggled his unfamiliar and difficult to control fish tail, moving a few steps across the floor towards the little princess of Enda. He said to the Princess of Enda, half mockingly, half sincerely. I'm sorry. As I said before, the one I love is another girl who saved me. She is a mermaid. For me, she drank the potion that split her fish tail into legs, abandoned her familiar homeland, and met me on land. To be with her, we found a great magician and asked him to concoct a medicinal wine that would allow us to both turn into mermaids and go to the sea together. The little Princess of Enda was stunned. The immense amount of information contained in Prince Eric's brief statement left her almost unable to react. It sounded like a story from a fairy tale book. Even more bizarre and strange than those stories. The little Princess of Enda murmured. So that's it, that old witch added a mind-altering drug to the wine. She immediately rushed to the prince, who had already turned into a mermaid, steadied Eric's unsteady body, and stared at the prince's dark eyes with deep remorse. I'm sorry, Eric, I truly didn't know, that's why I let you drink that bewitching medicine. So that's it, this is a deception, a huge deception, Prince Eric clenched his fists. They'd rather alter my memories than let us marry. There must be some conspiracy hidden in this. He tried to stand up, but having lost his legs, he could no longer do this simple thing. And then Eric thought. When Ariel first wanted to come to land, she might have encountered the same situation. Therefore, after Ariel pushed him, unconscious like a dead body, onto the shore, the mermaid could only watch him from afar in the seawater. Land and sea were an insurmountable chasm separating humans and mermaids. The little Princess of Enda covered her mouth, her eyes complex, wondering what she was thinking. No, I can't stay here. We must leave this place and end this absurd wedding farce. Prince Eric used his hands to pull himself across the ground, moving towards the temple's main door. At the same time, everyone else in the temple was already in a panic, completely oblivious to Eric's story. Someone tried to open the temple door to escape, but found it tightly welded shut. It's too strange, the door won't open. We're all trapped in here. The Princess of Enda and Prince Eric understood everything the moment they saw the tightly sealed door. This wedding was indeed nothing but a conspiracy from beginning to end. Prince Eric recalled the curse Ariel bore, and looking at the festive wedding decorations, he instantly understood the enemy's plan. He was furious, wishing he could cut down the mastermind behind it all with a single sword. The girl I love bore a terrible curse to come ashore. When the first dawn of my marriage to someone else arrives, her heart will shatter, and she will turn into sea foam. I must leave here as soon as possible. Who came up with such an evil idea? The Princess of Enda supported Prince Eric, and as if summoning all her courage, she identified the culprit. Eric. The one who orchestrated all of this is our Enda court witch, that old witch who went with the delegation to the Rose Kingdom. You saw her in the palace hall. She wasn't sure if more people were involved in the planning, such as her majestic father, the Emperor of Enda, who never knew what mercy was. The beautiful bride, cloaked in a wedding dress, lowered her head again, her entire body slumping powerlessly. The precious wedding dress, woven from light gauze, hung in disarray. Indeed, I am merely a tool without free will. When all these absurdities happened, I was both ignorant and powerless to do anything. The only thing I could do was be a bride, a pawn in a dark conspiracy. The Princess of Enda thought. At this moment, she recalled her first meeting with Prince Eric. At that time, his face was pale, and he lay on the shore like a corpse. She didn't know that the handsome, dying young man before her was a foreign prince. When she first discovered that the prince of the Rose Kingdom, to whom she was betrothed, was actually the young man she had saved, she was so excited that she felt it was a dream. The most wonderful thing she had never dared to imagine had actually happened. She was filled with happiness, seeing it as a beautiful encounter. However, looking at the chaotic wedding scene, hearing the panicked shouts of the people around her, and learning the unknown truth and the existence of a terrible conspiracy from Prince Eric, she couldn't help but wonder, was this so-called beautiful encounter also deliberately arranged? Wasn't it that old witch who had instructed her to go to the temple in the forest to learn royal etiquette? So, even her happiest dream was merely arranged and woven by others, just a part of a grand conspiracy. A tremendous sense of powerlessness almost crushed the beautiful bride. Through her misty, tear-filled eyes, and the white veil over her head, the Princess of Enda suddenly saw an unforgettable sight. Prince Eric, with a fishtail, kept thrashing his tail behind him, using his hands to pull himself along the ground, inching towards the temple door. He managed to prop himself up and tried hard to open the door. Afterward, he and the others successively tried the windows and other exits, but even places that appeared unobstructed seemed to have an invisible barrier preventing their departure. How could the panicked crowd trying to leave this building know that what was blocking them was not a physical wall, but this space duplicated in the mirror, which was only this large? Prince Eric, it seems we can't get out of this building by normal means. The Princess of Enda thought, and then a flash of inspiration struck her. Besides that potion, do you have any other magical tools? Other magical tools? Prince Eric was startled, and then suddenly remembered something. My bag, there's a silver mirror inside. Get it out. The Princess of Enda found the mirror as Prince Eric instructed and handed it to him. It was the communication tool that magician Rhine had given Ariel in the sea, and Ariel had given it to him. With it, he could contact magician Rhine. It's almost like fate, everything is just right. Prince Eric exclaimed with immense joy. He held up the mirror, and following Ariel's instructions, he fully reflected his handsome face in the mirror, and facing the mirror, he spoke of the predicament he was in. In the real world. Inside the crystal ball held by Rhine, a deep blue light burst forth, brighter than ever before. The young man showed no surprise, not even too much joy, just intently gazed at the crystal ball, which showed Prince Eric's face, for a moment. That direction. Rhine pointed to an inconspicuous building in the distance that looked like a civilian house. The next second, the little magician put away the crystal ball and placed his hands on Ariel's and Aurora's shoulders. The three figures rapidly blurred and vanished from their original spot. A location that was close enough and directly visible, even if unfamiliar, could be directly teleported to. Bang! In a burst of mist, the three figures reappeared. This was an empty warehouse. In the corner was a full-length mirror, which reflected not the outside world it should have, but the chaotic scene of the wedding. Break that mirror, and Prince Eric and the others will be able to come out, Rhine said. Just as the three were about to step forward to smash the mirror, they heard a violent explosion. A mass of black flames erupted in front, with sparks flying. The ugly old witch, draped in a black cloak, appeared in the flames, accompanied by a strong warrior in full plate armor, wielding a greatsword. Scattered black sparks fell around the two like stars. You actually found your way here. The old witch was horrified to see the three figures appear before her. How could this be? Had something gone wrong with her secret plan? Mermaid, I didn't expect you to get help from the Rose Kingdom's magician. The old witch's face grew even more distorted. However, even if you can find this place, it's meaningless. The old witch ordered the fully armored warrior. Go, kill them. The warrior took a step across, blocking the mirror and the old witch. He is a famous super warrior of Enda, a warrior who once slayed giant sea monsters, invincible on the battlefield, and can rival an entire army by himself. The warrior roared, charging towards the three, his roar making the entire building tremble. The great sword was raised high, stirring up a fierce wind, and cut down towards Rhine with a terrifying momentum that seemed capable of splitting everything apart. Clang! Crimson sparks flew. The great sword bounced off as if it had struck solid metal. The warrior stumbled back several steps due to the powerful recoil, almost falling backward to the ground. But what truly astonished him was that what blocked the greatsword was not a weapon or shield, but a small blonde girl. The girl directly stood in front of the other two, taking the greatsword's attack with her own head. What kind of monster is this? Before the soldier could react, the blonde girl shot out like an arrow from a bow, rushing in front of the soldier, her sword already drawn from her waist. Clang, clang, clang. In a flash of lightning, the two super warriors had already exchanged blows several times. Both sides seemed evenly matched. As for the old witch and little magician, the two magicians faced each other, wary, both tacitly not making a move. What kind of monster is that little girl? She can actually fight Antolin to a draw. He's a warrior who can make an entire army feel fear. The old witch was both surprised and amazed. No, not a draw. Little magician's voice rang out, how could it be a draw? The old witch looked closely. She saw that in the fierce battle, Aurora's movements were initially a bit clumsy, but as the battle progressed, her posture became more and more agile, growing increasingly familiar with the opponent's combat rhythm and the enemy's every defensive and evasive move, gradually gaining the upper hand and initiative. This strong soldier was hard-pressed, struggling to parry, and the greater sense of despair came not from the disadvantage in movements, but from the shock in his heart. This little girl, it was as if she was gradually learning his moves. In battle, she slowly mastered his rhythm, knowing the routine of every step forward and backward, anticipating them in advance. High-speed learning ability, this was the talent bestowed upon Aurora by the blessing. Due to long-term training, Aurora's abilities in fields such as culture, mathematics, and painting could only be considered much stronger than her peers. However, limited by age and experience, she was ultimately only within the scope of general excellence. In these areas, she merely scratched the surface, far from being a true genius or master. But in battle, this high-speed learning talent was magnified countless times. As long as she continuously fought powerful enemies, she could learn and understand their combat rhythm, acquire corresponding combat techniques, and grow infinitely. This was Aurora's first time fighting another super warrior. Previously, ordinary soldiers couldn't withstand her casual strike, but this super warrior from Endo, although not as strong as her, was far beyond the scope of ordinary people. Undoubtedly, this was an unprecedented and valuable learning opportunity. Aurora initially deliberately restrained her offensive momentum, not using her invulnerable advantage to ignore defense and attack with full force, but instead dodging normally and maneuvering with her opponent, precisely to observe the opponent's combat techniques and fighting style, imprinting every subtle posture in her mind. After the two sides maneuvered for 1 or 2 minutes, Aurora had completely grasped the combat rhythm of this super warrior, and even felt that she had become much stronger, no longer wishing to delay, and directly launched a lightning-fast offensive. Whoosh! Easily predicting the enemy's defensive and evasive postures, the gleaming sword bypassed the greatsword's defense, piercing towards the soldier's chest, aiming for the gap between the armor plates. Let's end this. This was a fatal blow. Clang! Blazing sparks shot out, scattering everywhere. Aurora was actually forced back several steps by the recoil. On the soldier's armor, glowing runes lit up in circles, intertwining into obscure patterns. What's going on? Aurora was both surprised and amazed. Ha ha ha. The old witch burst into laughter. I used my most precious, hidden herbs to draw runes of invulnerability to blades and spears, immunity to water and fire, and resistance to all poisons on that armor, transforming the armor into an indestructible barrier. This spell will not end until dawn. Speaking of this, the old witch felt a pang of heartache. For today's plan, she had poured out all her trump cards, all her accumulated treasures. Today's plan absolutely could not fail. The soldier saw Aurora retreat 2 steps and followed closely. After personally experiencing the armor's protective ability, this Endo warrior suddenly became bold. This full-plate armor, including a helmet and face mask, protected every part of his body without blind spots, making him fearless. The two became entangled again. A chaotic wind swirled throughout the warehouse, and the roars and metallic clashes made the entire building tremble, with constantly falling dust from above, and cracks extending across the ceiling, walls, and floor. Clearly, this soldier was far inferior to Aurora in both technique and agile movement. As a strong warrior over 3 meters tall, he was completely relying on a tenacious, clinging fighting style, trying to tie down this little girl. But the battle still couldn't end, remaining in a stalemate. With 2 invulnerable warriors fighting, How could such an absurd battle possibly end? While the two were fighting, Little Magician also rubbed the tinderbox several times, summoning 3 dogs, which together attacked the old witch. The old witch cast evil curses towards Little Magician's direction again and again. But the young man, relying on his power of prophecy, always sensed danger half a second before the spell arrived, and then used teleportation to avoid the lock-on. Ariel hid in a corner of the spacious warehouse, holding her breath, trying not to interfere with Little Magician and Aurora's battle. Oh my! Not only is Little Magician extraordinarily skilled, but Aurora is also incredibly powerful. I've never seen such an exaggerated and terrifying battle. My 2 human friends I made in the sea before are actually such incredibly powerful individuals. The mermaid princess's gaze fell on the full-length mirror behind the strong soldier and the old witch, clearly seeing the scene in the mirror. It was a sacred wedding scene, with many oil lamps emitting light, and blood-red flowers in full bloom. However, it was in chaos inside, with people in a panic. Among the large crowd of people in different attire, she immediately saw Prince Eric in a groom's suit. At this moment, Prince Eric's lower body was no longer human feet, but a mermaid's beautiful tail. Eric, he has already drunk the potion that turns him into a mermaid. A storm surged in Ariel's heart, its ferocity no less than the sea storm when the two first met. Unfortunately, I can't help at all. The mermaid princess lowered her head. The full-length mirror imprisoning Prince Eric was so close, yet she could only cower in the corner, unable to do anything, and still had to be careful to avoid the aftermath of the battle in front. Just then, Ariel discovered that next to her was a window, and below the cliff outside the window was the azure sea. Wave after wave crashed against the dark rocks, breaking into snowy white foam. This was not the port of Enda, there were no mermaids making a fuss, so it must be another sea area. The sea is right next to me, excellent. Then perhaps I can help a little. Ariel's heart filled with joy, and she quickly slipped out the window. The clothes she was wearing now were still the men's clothes Prince Eric had custom made for her earlier, so she could ride horses with him into the lush green forest, so she could climb the cloud-piercing mountains with him. In this unexpected situation, these clothes now displayed their advantage, they were quite convenient for movement. At the same time, the super warrior from Enda was still relying on his invulnerable advantage to desperately entangle Aurora, preventing her from attacking the old witch. To barely tie down this opponent, who was far stronger than himself, even this super warrior, who had once been invincible on the battlefield, had to pour all his energy into it, to the point where he completely failed to notice. At some unknown point, a bird quietly flew past behind him, lightly touching the back of his armor. Bang! The bird circled once and landed in the middle of the warehouse, transforming back into Little Magician in a cloud of mist. How foolish, old witch. There's no need for you to tell us your methods. Little Magician's lips curved into a smile. Little Magician flipped his palm. With a bang, a cloud of mist surged out. The full plate armor, covered in runes, was already in the young man's hand, dragging on the ground because it was too large. And on the Enda warrior, the indestructible full plate armor that protected him was gone, leaving only a set of defenseless clothes. What's going on? The super warrior from Enda was utterly astonished. Before he could react, he felt a pain in his chest. He looked down and saw Aurora's sword already plunged into his chest. Retrieve an item that has been touched. This was the first time Little Magician had used this magic, manifested from the wish to retrieve the tinderbox in battle. Although with Little Magician's current ability, it was still impossible to summon overly large items like carriages. But if used at the right time, it could have interesting and wonderful uses. Thud. The warrior, strong as a mountain, fell backward to the ground, raising clouds of dust. Aurora pulled out her sword and stared at the old witch, who was surrounded by the dogs and Little Magician in the corner of the warehouse, isolated and helpless. Thank you for telling me your abilities, Rhine said with a slight smile. In this fantasy world, a blend of fairy tales and epic stories, supernatural confrontations often unfold like this. The formidable strength of many mages and supernatural monsters lies only in one or two special mechanisms. Once the mechanism is deciphered, they become easy to deal with. Bring out whatever other skills you have. The old witch was terrified and prepared to use the pre-arranged setup in the venue to escape with the full-length mirror, which sealed Prince Eric, from the corner. I haven't lost yet. As long as I have hostages, as long as I have the resources of His Majesty the Emperor and other court mages, I cannot possibly lose. Although Prince Eric seems to have recalled his past. But as long as he does not return to the Xia kingdom as a witness and reveal his amnesia, my incriminating evidence will lack proof. At that time, I just need to say that Prince Eric mysteriously disappeared and push his disappearance onto these annoying guys. As for Princess and the other guests who experienced the upheaval at the wedding, His Majesty the Emperor will handle them. Numerous thoughts flashed through the old witch's mind. She looked at the full-length mirror in the corner, stretched out her hand, and was about to use the pre-arranged setup to transfer the full-length mirror again. Don't think you've won, watch me. Ryan seemed to have anticipated this and also raised his hand to stop her. Rumble. Amidst the deafening roar, the warehouse wall collapsed. A giant sea beast resembling a sea serpent crashed through the wall. Sitting on the sea beast's neck was Princess Ariel, singing a beautiful song. This immense impact simultaneously sent the full-length mirror, which was leaning against the wall, flying out. Clang, clang. The full-length mirror shattered into countless pieces due to the tremendous impact. Thank you, Pika. Ariel, riding the sea beast, finished her song, dismounted from the sea serpent, and patted the big sea serpent's head. The big sea serpent, like a pet, stuck out its tongue and dotingly licked the mermaid princess's hand, then reluctantly retreated into the sea. This giant sea beast cannot completely leave the water, it can only provide limited help. When it launched the attack just now, its tail was actually still in the sea. The old witch watched helplessly as the full-length mirror shattered into countless pieces, and figures emerged beside the mirror fragments. There were bewildered temple priests, panicked musicians, bewildered nobles and royalty who had been invited to this hasty wedding and were still confused, and of course, the little princess wearing a wedding dress made of light gauze, as well as Prince Eric, whose lower body had transformed into a fish tail. Eric. Ariel rushed over and tightly embraced Prince Eric, who had turned into a mermaid. Prince and princess, human and mermaid, embraced once more. The last time they embraced as human and mermaid was during that breathtaking night, in that deadly storm. And now they embraced in the same way, on another breathtaking night, in another, larger, storm. Only, their identities had been swapped. The little princess, clad in her wedding dress, gazed at Prince Eric and Ariel, who were tightly embracing, and recalled Prince Eric's past words, her heart a mix of emotions. As for the other released individuals, they remained incredibly confused, seeing the familiar old witch, then the completely unfamiliar Ariel, Rhine, Aurora, and the giant dog, as well as the ground covered in broken rubble and mirror fragments, utterly bewildered. Where are we? We were just at the temple. What exactly happened tonight? Someone explain. Rhine pointed at the old witch and said to everyone. It's her. It's this court witch who sealed you in the mirror. Because she was afraid that Prince Eric of the Xia kingdom would expose her crimes. After speaking, Rhine and Aurora stared at the old witch, pressing closer with each step. This is bad, this is terrible. The old witch gnashed her teeth in anger, fire almost spewing from her gapped teeth. She snapped her fingers, activating another spell pre-arranged here, and a large cloud of choking black smoke surged out, obscuring their vision. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the old witch flung her cloak, transforming into a crow within a cloud of black mist, and flew out through the recently shattered wall, soaring towards the brilliant starry sky above the sea. Rhine also transformed into an eagle and followed, chasing closely. Fool! Just chase, chase. This is the imperial city of Enda, and I have countless helpers. The old witch, transformed into a crow, roared in her heart, countless thoughts flashing through her mind. Don't think you've won, Sage of Rose Kingdom. His Majesty the Emperor will come to support me. As will the other court mages of Enda. We are in the imperial city of Enda, there are many super warriors and mages here. As long as Prince Eric doesn't successfully return to his country and testify against my crimes, there's still room for everything to turn around. Just you wait, just you wait. As long as His Majesty the Emperor sends reinforcements, neither you nor Prince Eric will leave this imperial city alive. Watching from afar as the mage Rhine, who was chasing the old witch, disappeared into the night sky, Ariel asked Aurora, who was also looking up. Aurora, don't you need to help? No, I trust my teacher, Aurora said confidently. She turned to Ariel and Prince Eric, whose lower body had transformed into a fish tail. I will escort you back to the Sia Kingdom's flower boat. Prince Eric nodded. Yes, the most urgent task is to return to the Sia Kingdom and expose this conspiracy before my father. This so-called wedding, this so-called alliance between two nations, hides too many unspeakable conspiracies. He immediately lowered his head, looking at the fish tail that was his lower body. But, I don't seem to be able to walk now. It's okay, Pika will help us, Ariel said with a smile. She waved to the big sea serpent in the sea below the cliff and began to sing her beautiful song again, which commanded sea creatures. The giant sea beast obediently nodded, half of its massive body leaving the water, extending over, looking like it was ready to be ridden. The three of them rode the sea serpent, moving along the waterway, heading towards the port of the Enda Imperial City. The sea was extremely calm, and bright moonlight scattered across the surface, turning into fine silver dust. A path of shimmering silver light could be seen on the sea, which was the reflection of the moon in the water. A cool sea breeze blew, and the intermittent cries of seagulls echoed in the distance. On the back of the sea serpent, Ariel and Prince Eric embraced, the girl still singing a beautiful and unparalleled song, her voice carried by the sea breeze, drifting into the distance. On the other side, Rhine pursued the old witch like a shadow. The two went from the sky to the sea, and from the sea to the land. During the chase, they transformed into various animals. One moment they were an eagle and a crow, the next a dolphin and a tuna, then a cat and a mouse. However, no matter what methods the old witch used, she could not shake off that fooled Grim Reaper behind her. Rhine would sometimes teleport, suddenly disappearing and then reappearing. Sometimes he would suddenly sing like Ariel, driving the fish to surround the tuna that the old witch had transformed into. Sometimes he would revert to his original form, pull out a crystal ball, and find the old witch, who had turned into a mouse and was hiding in an abandoned house. As the two chased each other through the imperial city streets, the old witch transformed back into her original form several times, attempting to command nearby soldiers to fight Rhine. However, due to the riot caused by the mermaids at the harbor, the area was already in chaos, and no one obeyed her orders. Many thoughts flashed through the old witch's mind. Fool fellow. I can't shake him off. I had a large group of ghouls and skeletons ambushed near that alley, but they were easily crushed by the giant dog he summoned. Someone, quickly, I need backup. Isn't this the imperial city of Enda? Why haven't they come yet? I just sent out the signal. Why isn't anyone helping me? Where are the other court magicians? Where are the emperor and his super warriors? Where did they all go? As time passed, the old witch, who kept fleeing and trying to buy time, felt increasingly cold and desperate. On the imperial city streets illuminated by the silver moonlight, the old witch reverted to her original form, glaring fiercely at the little magician who was leisurely approaching from behind, her eyes filled with unspeakable indignation and, even more so, undisguised anxiety. She was exhausted. She believed that the little magician chasing her must have also expended a lot of energy. But besides himself, that fooled magician also had 3 terrifying dogs. You seem to be stalling for time, waiting for someone. Rhine walked over with a smile, rubbing the tinderbox several times. Your luck seems to be very bad today, no one is willing to help you. With whooshing sounds, the 3 large dogs had already surrounded the old witch. The largest one's eyes were almost as big as a tower's dome. Even powerful spells could not incapacitate such an exaggerated beast in a short time. No, no, no. Why? The old witch cried out hoarsely, preparing for her final struggle. In the ugly witch's eyes, the image of the 3 large dogs pouncing on her was reflected. Emperor, did you not hear my plea for help? Inside the palace, a man with a thick beard, an imposing demeanor, and extraordinary martial prowess extended his strong right hand, picked up a captured black chess piece from the board, and unhesitatingly tossed the black bishop aside. He was the Emperor of Enda. Unlike his strong and powerful hand, the hand holding a chess piece on the other side of the board was noticeably more slender and fair, like a woman's hand. Your Majesty, aren't you sending anyone to rescue that court witch? She is the first witch of Enda. The gentle voice from across the chessboard said. What are you talking about? The Emperor of Enda's tone was calm and unruffled. From beginning to end, wasn't it all just her personal actions? sprinkling enchanting aphrodisiacs on my daughter, trying to turn a foreign prince into a puppet who would obey her every command, tricking Prince Eric into drinking a memory-erasing potion, secretly imprisoning the bride and groom along with other royalty and nobles. These countless sins are all evil deeds committed by that old witch for her own selfish desires. That old witch wanted to use the prince of the Sea Kingdom, who is the future king, to control the entire Sea Kingdom and gain qualification to join the witch society. She naively thought she had hidden it from me. Across the chessboard, there was a chuckle. As expected of your majesty. What exactly was she expecting, I wonder? The monarch of this empire moved a knight on the chessboard. Did she want me to kill a highly skilled magician of unknown origin, a super warrior who looks like a little girl but has immense strength, and the prince of the Sea Kingdom along with his entire ship of retainers, and not let them leave the imperial city? For your majesty, the Sea Kingdom is just a small country that can be destroyed with a flick of the wrist, isn't it? The slightly slender voice from across the chessboard said. I never fight meaningless wars, the man said coldly. An alliance between the two countries is no longer possible. Losing a sea kingdom in a key strategic location as an ally is a bit regrettable, but it doesn't affect my affairs. The man turned his head and looked at the guards waiting beside him. Tell that Maglido, the magician from the Middle Eastern countries, that the monarch of Enda agrees to grant him an audience. Summon him. He said he had a very important secret to tell me, right? Prince Eric, Ariel, and Aurora had already returned to the Sea Kingdom's pleasure boat, which was docked at the harbor. During the recent riot, many ships in the harbor were damaged and sank, but all the sunken ships were, without exception, Enda warships. This pleasure boat belonging to the Sea Kingdom remained intact. Upon seeing the prince, whose lower body had transformed into a fish tail, the crew members were incredibly surprised. Prince Eric explained to his retainers the reason he had become a merman, briefly recounting this absurdly hasty wedding and the entire conspiracy he had experienced. The people on the ship cursed the old witch's shamelessness and were all exceedingly relieved that Prince Eric had finally returned. Splash, splash. The beautiful large ship raised its anchor and set sail, heading in the direction of the Sea Kingdom under the starlight and moonlight, leaving a white wake behind the vessel. Ariel's sisters and her great-grandmother successively poked their heads out of the sea, waved to Ariel on the ship, and then dived back into the sea before the attendants could see them, leaving only a swirl of white foam. The moon is beautiful tonight. Don't you think so, my Ariel? On the deck of the pleasure boat, in the gentle, cool sea breeze, and under the bright, sacred moonlight, the prince of the Sea Kingdom and the princess of the Sea Kingdom embraced and kissed tightly. They had already experienced too much, countless difficulties and obstacles. They had crossed the chasm between land and sea, broken through the prejudices between humans and mermaids, endured the stubborn king's arrangements, and overcome the terrifying witch and the powerful empire's conspiracy. In the history of both land and sea, there had never been such a moving and tragic love story. Now, no one could stop them from being together. After this upheaval, it's impossible for the Sea Kingdom to ally with Enda. My marriage is also free. I will absolutely not let my king use me as a bargaining chip again to marry the princess of yet another country. No matter what, my bride can only be you, my Ariel. Wait, no. Prince Eric suddenly remembered something. Oh, Ariel. Prince Eric held the girl's hand, looking into her sapphire blue eyes, and asked tremblingly, the sun is about to rise. You'll be all right, won't you? Although incredibly hasty, although only the priest gave some symbolic blessings, although the wedding was disrupted midway, and although neither the bride nor the groom recognized this wedding now, Prince Eric did experience a nominal wedding. And according to the curse, on the first morning that the beloved marries someone else, the mermaid's heart will break and turn into sea foam. Aurora, upon hearing this, also became extremely worried. Ariel, you. She grabbed her mermaid friend's hand as if Ariel was about to disappear. When they first met in the sea, Ariel was still in her mermaid form, but now the girl's lower body had long since become human legs. In the distant east, a pure white glimmer was faintly visible. The sun was about to rise. I realized I was too focused on flowery language, descriptions, and lyrical writing before, and felt I was a bit off track. Near the shipping lane between the kingdom of Shia and Enda, on an uninhabited deserted island. The king leaned against a tree, looking at the drenched soldiers around him, feeling as if everything that had just happened was a dream. The monarch of the kingdom of Shia could not even believe that he was still alive. The howling gale, the icy rain, the deafening thunder, all the terrifying sights seemed not to have gone far, appearing repeatedly in his memory. I never thought that a group of merfolk would save us. It seems merfolk are indeed not the evil creatures said in legends to bring disaster. The Sea King and the other merfolk rescued the king and everyone else on the ship. Everyone survived, no one perished in this terrifying storm. They brought the king and his party to the shore and naturally began to converse with them. The merfolk told stories of the sea, and curiously asked the humans about affairs on land. This sounded very interesting. An astonishing scene appeared on the shore of this deserted island. Hundreds of humans gathered on the beach, while in the sea in front, there were hundreds of merfolk, exchanging stories of the scenery on land and in the sea. In the history of the Sea Kingdom, such a scene had never occurred. Many humans only learned today that they had too many misconceptions about the merfolk of the deep sea. Beneath that deep blue sea, there was a magnificent, fantastical, and beautiful kingdom that they did not understand. Those merfolk were similar creatures to them. They had similar emotions. They would love, hate, be sad, suffer, and also have moments of joy. Except for their legs and fish tails, and the difference in their homes, land and sea. How much difference was there between merfolk and humans? The Sea King told the human king his next plan. We can drive giant sea beasts. In the sea, they are like, what is that animal called on land? A horse, right? But they are much bigger than horses. After some time, my servants will summon those big fish and sea snakes from the sea country, and you can ride on the backs of those sea beasts and let them drag you back to your country. The king was overjoyed when he heard this. The denizens of the great sea are truly wondrous. This is much more convenient than human ships. During this recent period, the king felt that chatting with this monarch of the sea was a very pleasant experience. This monarch of the sea was not like those kings on land who liked to put on airs and always had many hypocritical thoughts. By the way, it will take some time to mobilize that batch of large sea beasts, the Sea King added. It's rare to have such an opportunity to meet a large group of humans. O king of the land, how about coming to my palace as a guest? The Sea King's palace. The deep-sea palace beneath myriad waves. The king almost thought he had misheard, then heard the Sea King say. We have a way here to allow humans from land to go into the sea, though it is limited to only a dozen or so people. Your Majesty can choose your most loyal attendants to come to my palace as guests. Suddenly, a large fish surfaced on the sea, its belly as transparent as pure glass. This was an idea the Sea King had after Rhine and Aurora's visit to the deep-sea palace. He searched the deep sea for various strange and bizarre fish that humans on land had never seen, and finally found a type of fish suitable for transportation that could allow humans to travel to the Sea Kingdom. Thank you for your invitation, esteemed monarch of the sea. The king's face lit up with joy. He had been to many places on land, to snowy glaciers and verdant forests, climbed to the tops of mountains, watching layers of clouds flow beneath his feet, but had never seen a kingdom in the sea. The king then selected a dozen loyal attendants and soldiers and entered the belly of the large fish serving as transportation. The large fish slowly submerged into the sea. Ah! A painful scream echoed from a street in the Enda imperial city. The old witch's final desperate counterattack was suppressed, and she was bitten in half at the waist by a giant dog, completely dying. Rhine watched the two severed halves of the corpse fall to the ground one after another. The next moment, the little magician felt that some magic in the city was being mobilized, and strange magical fluctuations appeared nearby. A contingency plan that a certain old witch had set up in this city beforehand was triggered. From the upper half of the corpse, a translucent, ethereal figure emerged, precisely in the image of the old witch. Although I am dead, I will not let you go. Just you wait, I have become an evil spirit, a vengeful ghost, but I will still kill all of you. Including that German emperor who abandoned me, I will not let him go either. The old witch shrieked. She was now a wandering ghost, most of her memories and human emotions had dissipated, leaving only her obsession from life and an unquenchable resentment. Is it a bit annoying? Who made human souls immortal in this world? Rhine said, hands in his pockets, looking at the old witch who had become a vengeful spirit. The other party had clearly activated a corresponding arrangement at the moment of death, so that after death, her immortal soul did not lose all its memories and travel to other worlds or reincarnate. her soul would continue to wander in the present world. I have read about similar necromancy in books, Rhine said calmly. Do you think you still exist like this? You are already dead. Your current wandering form is just an embodiment of resentment, an obsession that still drifts in the human world. You can never generate new goals, nor possess emotions other than hatred. The old witch, who had become a vengeful spirit and lost most of her human thoughts, could not even ponder the questions Rhine posed. She was already filled with pure hatred, and opened her mouth to curse Rhine in front of her. Suddenly, a dark vortex appeared on the old witch's corpse. The vortex did not bring substantial wind pressure, but it seemed to have a peculiar attraction for souls. The old witch's vengeful spirit screamed and was sucked into the vortex, disappearing without a trace. Rhine slowly approached the old witch's corpse. After death, her soul was sent to who knows where by a pre-arranged spell. Rhine calmly watched the old witch's disappearance, not feeling any pity that she still existed in some form after death. He had not yet mastered the magic of imprisoning souls, and indeed could do nothing about it. In any case, after becoming a vengeful spirit, the old witch lost most of her magic from life and could not possess clear thoughts. It was impossible for her to weave any more conspiracies, and she could not have much impact on reality, only able to wander the world by instinct, following her last shred of obsession. Rhine directed the smallest of the 3 dogs to search the old witch's corpse and retrieve a mirror. For a magician, mirrors are usually tools for communicating over long distances, often hiding great secrets. It's like checking communication records. Rhine recalled some things from his past life and couldn't help but smile. He gently stroked the mirror's surface, activating divination and prophecy magic, and whispered. The content of the last image contacted through this mirror. On the mirror's surface, a tall woman dressed in a black-purple robe appeared. Although the forcibly reproduced image was extremely blurry, Rhine recognized her cold face at a glance. Black Witch Maleficent. Rhine took out a crystal ball and injected more prophetic magic into the mirror. Maleficent in the image began to move, and past conversations appeared one after another in the mirror. What is it again? Didn't you just look for me yesterday? I said, once you achieve your goal, I will allow you to join us. I was just discussing with my sisters what method would be most spectacular and interesting to kill that sea hag who is about to be kicked out of our witch society. Esteemed Maleficent, I wanted to remind you something about the magicians of the Rose Kingdom and their warriors. I think they must also be thinking of finding you and killing you to lift the kingdom's curse. Listening to these conversations, watching Maleficent reveal various expressions in the mirror, Rhine, whose guesses were finally verified, murmured the word, Witch Society. He had a premonition that with the influence of this organization, he would likely have many dealings with them on his future journey. That old witch is a probationary member of the Witch Society. Once the Witch Society learns of her death, Aurora and I will definitely be noticed by them. The sea witch living in the coral forest is in danger. Find an opportunity to tell her this news. Rhine tried to trace earlier communication messages again but ultimately failed. The information obtainable through divination was limited after all. Putting away the mirror, Rhine pulled a strand of hair from the old witch's corpse for future divination. His figure then vanished into the air. The light of dawn shone on the street he had left. The sun was slowly rising from the eastern horizon. On the deck of the Sia Kingdom's flower boat, Prince Eric held Ariel tightly, repeating words of love over and over, seemingly believing that if he loved her a little more during this last moment, an immortal soul would grow robustly within Ariel, preventing his beloved from turning into foam. Ariel, when we return to the Sia Kingdom, as long as you are safe and sound, we will hold a grand wedding. This wedding will be held on a ship in the center of the ocean, where the human world and the Sea Kingdom meet, so that your grandmother, your sisters, and your father can also see your happiness. I will no longer let my father stop us. If he still disagrees and wants to use me as a bargaining chip for a political marriage, then we will go to the world and the sea together. Ariel caressed the prince's trembling face, trembling from anxiety. Don't worry about me, Eric, I think I should be fine. Beside them, Aurora turned her head every now and then to look at the increasingly bright east. She watched the light gushing from the sea horizon, watched the pure white of dawn dispel the darkness of night and melt the stars, and she was extremely anxious. Aurora paced back and forth uneasily, worried that the final outcome would not be good. They had already experienced so much, overcome all difficulties and obstacles, Enda's conspiracy was exposed, and that old witch should have been defeated by her teacher. Everyone was about to usher in a beautiful ending. How could Ariel fall before dawn? Finally, the golden sun fully rose, casting bright and warm sunlight on the sea. The sea breeze blew, and the golden and purple flags on the ship swayed with the wind. The cries of seagulls rose and fell in the distance. Ariel, you're fine, you're completely unharmed. Both Aurora and Prince Eric confirmed Ariel's safety with their own eyes. The light of dawn had indeed fallen, but Ariel had not turned into sea foam. It seems that such a hasty and interrupted wedding simply does not meet the trigger conditions for the curse. Prince Eric said with a smile. He picked up his girl around the waist and kissed her again to celebrate her safety. Aurora finally breathed a sigh of relief and agreed with the prince's guess. Indeed, it should be as Prince Eric said. This nominal wedding lacked true love, was too hasty and simple, and was only half completed. Even the nominal bride and groom did not recognize it, so it could not be considered marrying someone, and thus Ariel remained safe and sound. Just as they were about to celebrate, a clear and calm voice of a young man came from behind them. That's not the case. This nominal wedding is still valid and fully sufficient to trigger the curse on Ariel. The three were stunned. Rhine had returned to the ship at some point, leaning his arms on the railing, looking at the golden sea illuminated by the sun in the distance, letting the cool sea breeze ruffle his silver hair. Rhine turned his head and smiled. Ariel is still safe and sound for only one reason. Long before this flower boat arrived at the imperial port of Endo, long before the old witch began this plan, Ariel had already obtained an immortal soul. As early as when this ship was on its way to Endo, I quietly boarded the ship, approached Ariel, and performed a complex divination for her, which led to the conclusion mentioned above. The three's eyes froze, and they were all stunned at the same time. In other words, Prince Eric's mouth fell open in surprise. Yes, Rhine said calmly, the old witch's conspiracy had not even the slightest chance of success from the very beginning. For a mermaid who has already obtained an immortal soul from the human who loves her, this curse is as good as non-existent. Everyone recalled the old witch's previous smug, evil smile, and combining it with the truth Rhine was now speaking, everyone suddenly felt that the old witch was like a complete clown. But, Aurora was stunned. Teacher, didn't you say before that Prince Eric only knew Ariel's true identity for a few days, and the time they had been in love was too short, not enough to give her an immortal soul? Prince Eric's love alone is indeed not enough. Rhine slowly paced on the deck, not continuing to speak, but turned his head to gaze at the shimmering golden sea in the distance. There are many forms of love in the world, far more than just love between men and women, far more than just romantic love. When a human pours emotion into a mermaid who does not have an immortal soul, cares about her, thinks about her, and worries about her, a trace of their soul will split off and merge into the mermaid's body. When enough threads of soul are shared, a quantitative change will lead to a qualitative change, and an immortal soul will grow within the mermaid's body. Aurora lowered her head, already understanding her teacher's meaning. And Ariel covered her mouth, looking at the silent Aurora. Me. Aurora murmured softly. Yes, Rhine smiled. Besides Prince Eric, there is more than one human on this land who cares about Ariel. Compared to Prince Eric, who only knew Ariel's true identity about a week ago, you and Ariel met even earlier. Aurora understood. Besides Prince Eric, there was another human's love that together gave Ariel an immortal soul. And that human was her. When the three first met in the ocean, when Ariel told her newly met human friend her wish, when she, out of simple sense of justice, stood up for Ariel in front of the sea hag, when she wanted to say, I feel sorry for the mermaids, at the bottom of the deep blue sea, when she anxiously rushed about for Ariel's safety on a dark night. At every such moment, a trace of soul split from her body and merged into Ariel's body. Aurora. Ariel could no longer suppress her excitement. She rushed over and hugged the small golden-haired girl, who was much shorter than her but possessed extraordinary abilities, with all her might. Thank you, my human friend. You saved me. It was your constant worry for me and your consideration for me that prevented my heart from shattering and my body from turning into foam on the sea. I remember, in front of that sea witch, you once said that besides the prince, I could gain an immortal soul because of another human's love. When I heard your idea at the time, I was completely stunned. And now, it's true. Thank you. Aurora, Being thanked and hugged like a child, suddenly felt a little embarrassed, and a blush appeared on her face. I apologize, Aurora. I didn't tell you the truth last night, but instead tried to create a tense atmosphere. Ryan explained with a smile. That's because the newly born immortal soul is too fragile, and if it suddenly loses the nourishment of love, it's not absolutely impossible for it to dissipate. Given the possibility of Prince Eric losing his memory, to ensure foolproof safety, I needed to create a sense of crisis, to ensure that you constantly worried about Ariel, and that your feelings for Ariel always remained. Aurora nodded, fully understanding her teacher's intention. Prince Eric also wiggled his mermaid tail and moved over, caressing the girl's golden hair and expressing his gratitude to her. Seeing this, everyone suddenly remembered that Prince Eric hadn't changed back yet. Ryan then took out a bottle of potion for mermaids to become humans, and poured it down Prince Eric's throat, allowing him to regrow human legs, so it wouldn't be difficult to explain when he met the king. Respected magician Ryan, I have a question. Ariel asked cautiously, feeling a little confused. Are these potions that can turn mermaids into humans and humans into mermaids, not too precious? How could Ryan always take out these things so casually, without seeming to mind at all? That's right, the ingredients aren't expensive, and you can mass produce them with a large pot. I can refine hundreds of bottles a day, Ryan said. After the old witch died, he took the opportunity to raid her treasured stock of medicinal herbs, clearing it out completely. For a long time, he wouldn't have to worry about those strange magical potion ingredients. Is that so? Ariel was stunned. To exchange for this medicine from the sea hag back then, she almost lost her voice and became mute forever. For these two types of potions, among all the ingredients, the hardest to obtain is magical blood. This is also why that sea witch charges a high price for it, because she has to use her own blood, Ryan explained, but I have 3 magical big dogs that can heal themselves, so I just take their blood. Poor dogs. Ariel couldn't help but think. After regrowing his legs and putting on his pants, Prince Eric happily spread his arms, basking in the sunlight. Now, all of us are safe and sound. When we return to the kingdom of Shia, I will tell my father that I want to marry Ariel. He absolutely cannot stop me anymore. How do you plan to explain Ariel's identity to your father? Ryan asked. Prince Eric was momentarily speechless. Then, great magician Ryan, what do you suggest I say? The prince, who had been talking for a long time without a clue, could only once again turn to this powerful and seemingly omnipotent little magician. Just tell him directly. Tell him Ariel is a mermaid princess from the Sea Kingdom. Ryan shrugged. Tell him directly. Prince Eric was stunned. Ariel also showed a surprised expression. On the other hand, Aurora, who had been feeling uncomfortable after being praised earlier, heard Ryan's suggestion at this moment and showed no doubt, looking as if she already knew. This is a prophecy given to you by a prophet, a seer, a wise man, Ryan said. You directly tell your father Ariel's origin and identity, and then your father will allow you two to be together. Thank you. Prince Eric bowed respectfully to Ryan. Prophecy is truly wonderful and magical. Actually, there's nothing magical about it. Prophecies often only yield very vague fragments of fate. A truly effective prophecy is to first set the desired outcome, and then work hard to achieve it, Ryan muttered inwardly. As Ryan thought, he looked down at the surging sea, his gaze seemingly able to penetrate the deep blue ocean, seeing the magnificent Sea King's palace beneath the seawater. Near the Sea King's palace, the king of Shia Kingdom witnessed too many miracles with his own eyes today. Through the transparent belly of the giant fish, he personally saw the underwater world. He saw many strange plants, saw the palace walls built of coral, and saw the sea flowers blooming in the mermaid princess's garden. Is this the Sea Kingdom? It's too beautiful. While exclaiming, the king also vaguely felt that he seemed to have seen these scenes before, with a strange sense of familiarity. He also personally saw the mermaids' ability to control schools of fish and sea beasts in the sea, marveling at the talents of these children of the sea. At the same time, he also learned that mermaids were familiar with the temperament of the sea and could sense the arrival of storms in advance. An idea popped into the king's mind. How wonderful it would be if we could establish diplomatic relations with the Sea Kingdom. With mermaids foreseeing storms in advance and driving sea beasts and fish schools, Our Shia kingdom's ships will surely always sail smoothly, and our fishing industry will always be highly productive. There are also many clams, pearls, shells, and corals in the sea, which are commonplace for mermaids. If our Shia kingdom and the Sea kingdom develop trade, we will surely gain a lot. We can exchange treasures from the sea for gold and silver with other countries, becoming the richest country on the entire Western continent. Just like those Middle Eastern countries that serve as hubs for East-West trade. This is hundreds or thousands of times better than forming an alliance with Enda. The king of Shia kingdom informed the Sea king of his thoughts, pleading with utmost sincerity. Please, monarch of the sea, please form an alliance with our Shia kingdom. In fact, when communicating with Rhine, the Sea king had already anticipated this and was already overjoyed. In the history of the Sea kingdom, this was the first time humans had actively sought to be close to them. Previously, the Sea king had thought of many ideas to establish good relations with humans on land, but all had failed. But at this moment, facing the king's sincere expression, the Sea king deliberately showed an indifferent look. Is this trade you speak of very important to us mermaids? The Sea king remembered that Rhine said that at this time, he should let the other party propose the alliance, and he should maintain a cool demeanor. Anyway, there were so many countries on land, and it wasn't necessary to form an alliance with Shia kingdom first. That's how supply and demand work. The king saw that the Sea king seemed uninterested in the alliance and became anxious. That's right, the Sea kingdom has never allied with other countries, so it's completely uninteresting. No. Becoming the first human nation in history to ally and trade with the Sea kingdom is absolutely a huge benefit for Shia kingdom. Even if it means paying a greater price and signing more unequal treaties, such a heaven-sent opportunity must not be missed. Sea king, the king pleaded. As long as our two countries form an alliance, I will use all my power as king to promote the beauty of mermaids and wash away the prejudice of humans across the entire continent against mermaids. There's such a good thing. The Sea king was just about to propose it himself, but he didn't expect this human king to have already said it first. The Sea king tried his best not to show how overjoyed he was, and calmly said, "Oh, that sounds pretty good." He was just about to try to persuade the king not to go back on his word when he heard the king of Shia kingdom say again, "I know, this is not enough to impress your majesty, the Sea king. We have many resources on land that cannot be produced in the sea. We have developed handicrafts, we have beef and mutton, and we have many silk clothes traded from other countries. Once our two countries begin trade, you will easily obtain these resources. We can also custom make items specifically for you that are suitable for use in seawater. Oh, and also, if your Sea kingdom has any special requests, we will devote all our national strength to help you achieve them. Because we are allies, after all." The Sea king, who had always yearned to establish friendship with humans, felt as if he was dreaming when he heard this, yet he still maintained a calm expression and said faintly, "All right, I'll consider it. A huge profit." The king was almost overwhelmed with joy, and at the same time, he secretly thought, "Later, I must press the advantage. I will propose generous terms that the Sea king cannot refuse, making him agree to the alliance." The king planned to devote all his energy to preparing for this matter as soon as he returned to the kingdom. As for forming an alliance with Enda, that could be put aside for now. Thinking of this, the king even felt a bit resentful. Why did Prince Eric agree to marry the princess of Enda at this time? It made delaying the alliance with Enda very difficult. He should have given Eric marital freedom in the first place. The Sea king then led the king and his attendants, riding a large fish, to visit other parts of the Sea kingdom, and they also met 5 beautiful mermaid princesses. After the turmoil at the Enda imperial city port ended, the 5 princesses had returned to the Sea king's palace. "Sea king, I have a question," the king asked, puzzled. "You seemed to say earlier that you have 6 daughters. Why are there only 5 princesses here?" The Sea king explained. "My youngest and most beloved daughter, the 6th princess of the Sea kingdom, has always been curious about your human world. She obtained a magic potion from a sorcerer that can transform a mermaid's tail into human legs, and she went to the land. Oh my, so magic can turn mermaids into humans. Then it can probably turn humans into mermaids too. This means there isn't an insurmountable chasm between the Sea kingdom and human nations after all." The king's heart swelled with emotion, and at the same time, he keenly grasped This was an opportunity for him to show his attitude to the Sea King. Sea King, so your little daughter is currently on land. The king's attitude was incredibly sincere. What is her name on land, and what does she look like? I will definitely take good care of her. It is difficult for mermaids from the sea country to go to land to take care of this little princess. Isn't this exactly where we humans can help? We will help you find that little princess, let her live in the most luxurious palace, eat the best delicacies, and wear the most precious and beautiful clothes. I swear, I will entertain and protect her in every way possible. Otherwise, how dangerous it would be for a delicate little princess alone on land. I swear in the name of the king, after we find your little daughter, we will fulfill all of that little princess's reasonable wishes and never let her suffer even a bit of grievance. The king was extremely agitated, speaking non-stop in a torrent, afraid that if he said one less word, the Sea King would refuse the alliance. The Sea King nodded slightly. It's not impossible. The king's suspended heart finally settled, and another thought popped into his mind. If my son could marry a mermaid princess, wouldn't the alliance between our two nations be set in stone? What a pity, what a trick of fate, how did I arrange for Prince Eric to marry the Princess of Enda? Why wasn't he more rebellious, more excited, more stern in refusing me? Never mind, Prince Eric doesn't want others to arrange his marriage. Even if I told him to marry the Little Mermaid princess, he would probably refuse. I also have a younger son, Henry, however, he is currently traveling abroad and I don't know when he will return. Feeling that there was no opportunity for his own son to marry the mermaid princess, the king then racked his brains, going through all suitable sons among the important royal family members and nobles, to see who would be suitable to marry that little mermaid princess. Oh, by the way, Sea King. What was your little daughter's name again? The king asked the crucial question. Ariel, the Sea King said, her name is Ariel. At this point, the Sea King sighed with emotion. Although she has taken on a human form, Ariel still retains the beautiful singing voice of a mermaid. Even in the Sea Kingdom, you won't find a more beautiful singing voice. If you've heard her sing, you will absolutely never forget it. Inside the transparent belly of the large fish, the king felt as if he had been struck by lightning, his legs buckling, and he fell to the ground. He suddenly remembered why he had felt a strange sense of familiarity when he saw the beautiful scenery of the Sea Kingdom. Wasn't this precisely the scene of the kingdom from which Ariel came, as described by the sorcerer of the Rose Kingdom? So that's it, the Ariel whom Prince Eric deeply loves is that little mermaid princess. This is simply like fate's arrangement. Countless chaotic thoughts flashed by, and the king's heart was filled with intense regret. How can there be such a foolish father in the world? Such a foolish king. Why did I refuse Prince Eric and Ariel's marriage at that time? I should have agreed to them. Eric would be happy, and I could also form a marriage alliance with the Sea Kingdom. It's over, everything is completely ruined now. Prince Eric and the Princess of Enda are married, and nothing can be changed. Why can't time flow backward? What foolish things have I done? Afterward, the king, accompanied by his attendants, returned to the kingdom of Shia, riding the large fish and sea beasts. Sitting on his familiar throne, the king was still dispirited, even inquiring of his subordinates whether there truly existed a magic potion called regret medicine in the world. This monarch of the kingdom no longer possessed his former spirited demeanor and dignified nobility. He was completely immersed in endless regret, wishing he could give his past self from a few days ago a good beating. Suddenly, a soldier reported to the king. Prince Eric has returned to the kingdom. What? Eric is back already? The king was both surprised and doubtful, and he took his people to greet the returning prince. On the way back to the palace by carriage, Prince Eric was constantly uneasy. He had sent soldiers on fast horses ahead to report the situation he had encountered and end his conspiracy. This included 2 pieces of evidence. The mind-corroding magical spice that Rhine found on the Princess of Enda, and Prince Eric's own true verbal account of his memory loss. This indicated that this nominal marriage alliance between the two nations harbored a great darkness. If this conspiracy were allowed to succeed, Eric, who would inherit the throne in the future, would inevitably lose his self-will due to the scent, becoming a puppet of that old witch, and the entire kingdom of Shia would fall into foreign hands. Regardless of whether Enda's emperor and court participated in this plan, This was a thorn in the hearts of both nations, and the so-called alliance plan between the two nations had to be put aside for now. However, the truly most crucial matter, concerning Ariel's background, Prince Eric intended to tell his father only after seeing him in person. Will the king truly agree to my marriage with Ariel after he knows Ariel's true identity? The prince was extremely worried. In Prince Eric's perception, his father had always been stubborn and conservative. Would he really agree to him marrying a non-human monster? Don't worry, my Eric, Rhine said it would definitely be fine. Ariel comforted him from the side. Prince Eric could only put his mind at ease for now, clasping his hands together and silently praying. Thanks for watching.